Apologies. It's late. Give me a break, you fuck. Goddamn right, we're about to start. Literally a minute away. Well, goodness gracious, fellas. Welcome to a very late night Gavin and the games. I appreciate you staying up late with me. My sleep schedule has been all kinds of crazy. So what do we do, kids? We stream when we can. We rise when we can. We stream when we can. Let me just tell you something briefly. That first amazing song that you heard at the top of the stream was from our very own Alex Plox. That is from the upcoming, is from two places really. It's from the upcoming soundtrack of Monarch. Now Monarch is a game, a one-man band. Rob the Mod, who mods this very stream, is making his own game. It's a boomer shooter that's a cross between Blade Runner and Twilight Zone, set in the year 2065. It's about a cop who left the city 10 years ago and he's returning to a madness he once called home. So it's called Monarch, and Trey Trimble made the pumpkin you're looking at right here. Alex Plox is the good sir fellow who made the song there. It's also off an upcoming album of his, an EP called Haddle Rain, and that's got synthwave, drum machines, haunting choruses, all that good sort of 80s vibe stuff. That's coming soon. The second song you heard, which fascinates me that somebody in the chat wrote Scooby-Doo music, because yeah, you goddamn right, but I don't know this song, but it's from a great band that I really like, Unrivaled Sound. They're from the bloody mean streets of Cincinnati, Ohio. Don't know if that's true, but I like saying that. They have a Halloween-themed rock album out called Ghost Stories. They have songs like On a Dark and Stormy Night, Terror Time, like you just heard Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island rock cover. Never fucking heard that song before. I love it. They have one called Fiction that I, excuse me, that I love. So look, if you go down below in the about this video, you can see all the links to these good folks. Yeah, Mutant Mo says it sounded like punk. It honestly sounds like punk pop to me, which I love. But no, rock, punk, whatever it is, I like it. And you can find Monarch and Trey, Alex's stuff, and Unrivaled Sound down below. You'll also see it racing up on the tracks up above during the chat throughout the show this evening. Welcome, Insomniacs. It's good to see you. Hello, Trey Trimble. Good to see you, buddy. Bukaki, we'll get some Quitter on again. We had Quitter on a couple times. Hello, Peapod. Okay, now look. We're doing it late tonight. That's how we do it. Help me out there, Spazbo says that song was from the first movie, the home video Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I watched it as a young kid because I had a friend that really liked Scooby-Doo. Well, there you go. Well, I like it. Hello, Captain Jim Sparrow. It's going really good, actually. From time to time, I like to do these things late at night. There's a different feeling when you're sitting here streaming out to the world where a lot of people, at least on this side of the planet, are asleep. And it's the ones who choose to stay up with you and be up late with you that, it feels different. And I appreciate you going along for the ride. We have some video game news to talk about today. We have some important news. We have some fun news. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get into it. But I want to let you know, if you want to call in and talk live just because it's late, that does not mean that option has left your brain pan. You are still able to call in and talk to me on the call-in show channel. Join the Discord, put yourself in the call-in waiting room, and we will talk as pals do. In the meantime, let us begin the show. The show of shows. Oh, yeah, Spazbo, go get your goddamn pizza, sir. You're goddamn right. Okay. Let's talk about... So I would say this qualifies as the main news of the day. Let me fix the screen there for you, knuckleheads. God of War... PC exclusives. Now, we knew it was coming, but now we know when it's coming. It's coming, I think they said January 14th. And I'll tell you something. This is a hell of a package Sony's put together. There's the graphics are going to be better. The frame rate is going to be great. Multiple frame rates. It's free frame rate, whatever you want. Customizable controls, ultra wide screen support, so you can play it in panoramic if you have a 21.9 ultra wide screen. This really is going to be the definitive version of this game that you can play, and I think you're seeing that. You saw that with Days Gone. I think Ghost is out on PC as well, right? Or maybe it's Horizon I'm thinking of. There's one other PC title that's out from first party that's really kind of the knees bees or the bee's knees, whatever the fuck it's called. But yeah, this is I think this is good news. Now, obviously, this news has sent a number of people in the PlayStation, ecosystem. They're always upset about something. And I spent some time today doing some research trying to figure out where, if I could find, if I could find a piece of logic that I could get my head around and go, well, I don't agree with that logic, why people are upset with this decision from Sony, but at least it kind of makes sense, right? Because what I see is, like Mr. Rob in the chat just typed, is there really exclusives for PC? That's messed up for us PS owners. Well, it's not an exclusive, although some of the features are exclusive, but that comes down to them having more time to develop it, and more importantly, having higher hardware specs than the PS5 have. So I was like, well, what is a good reason? What is not an emotional reason for this? And I know Bukaki in the chat is kidding, but I've seen this throughout the day today. Bukaki's kidding when he writes, how could Sony betray a fan like me? I'm burning my PlayStation 5. Right, okay, but that is a relatively common refrain. And so I was on NeoGAF, and this guy wrote this, and I thought it was this was like, okay, I don't agree with it being the reason that you wouldn't put your games, if you're Sony, on PC, but at least there was some logic to this that I hadn't heard, where he says, The reason, this is a guy named DVD Video. He says the reason Sony should not want this is they could stand to lose some of their royalty revenue from other software companies who make games for PS5. So, for example, 5 million less people buy a PlayStation 5 thinking they'll eventually get the game for their PC. So now that's 5 million less consoles sold, and each one would have netted, let's say, 5 third-party games and some add-on sales, meaning $100 per unit, losing 50 million in overall sales. They need to sell a lot of games on the PC side to make that up, considering most of those games would have sold to the console owners. There's a lot of assumptions that he's making, but anybody other than Sony, who has the numbers and has the marketing and has the research, we're all just fucking guessing. He would be betting the farm, suggesting that he knows there's 5 million people out there that are going to wait. But there's other people that are saying this is actually going to get people on the PC side to buy PS5s, because once they finish this, X months later, they know that, God of War Ragnarok is coming out, and that's going to motivate them to buy the hardware. I just kind of look at it from a first-party standpoint, and I say, well, that's going to give these guys a lot more money to make more games, to keep employees happy, and to keep doing the stuff that everybody says they love. So I don't agree that this guy, DVD Video, would have enough of a piece of logic here unless he's got the data to back it up to say this is a reason not to do it. But yeah, I'm great. I'm glad they're doing it. I think it's fucking wonderful. I think it's and I think Sony sees the writing on the wall too. I think ultimately, as much as some people don't want to admit it, I think it's very clear that the days of consoles are numbered. And whether that number is PS6 or PS7, the days of consoles are numbered. I think we'll be streaming very soon, exclusively, before we know it. We'll be on PCs and streaming to the televisions. And it's the days of needing a dedicated piece of hardware to play a video game. I think those are going to be in our rear view, in the same way that before we knew it, digital was the main way people get their games. But as I've said before, I was walking the halls of a GameStop trade show in 2012, and it was me and Cliff Bleszinski. We passed each other on an elevator or an escalator, and we were talking real quick, and it was just like about all the game, the putting the game passes in the PlayStation 3s, that you had to have the online passes and stuff, and we were like, well, eventually this is all going to be digital. And there were some people around. It's like, oh, that's going to be 20 years from now. There's no infrastructure to support it. And lo and behold, this is where we're at. So we're going down the same road. It's how the industry works. It's how any tech industry works. Right. So Bukaki says Sony read this guy's post and thought, shit, he's right. Why didn't we think of that? Cancel the God of War PC release now. Here's what I wonder, though, right? So, I think it's normal in any fandom for people to sort of backseat drive or Monday morning quarterback. I think that's just what people do. But I wonder if it's weird. Like, if you watch sports, and I know a lot of you guys don't like sports, but let's just say you watch sports, or you're familiar with the cliche of the guy who's sitting around watching sports, and he's like, "You fucking moron of a coach! You should have said this, and you should have gone for it on fourth down and not punted and all this shit, or gone for a field goal, whatever." In that case, sometimes it feels like, I don't know, maybe as somebody who doesn't know the people in the industry and hasn't worked in the industry, I'm like going, yeah, I know more. But in this case, yeah, it's like, of course Sony has run the numbers. Of course Sony has, done market research. They've decided they're not just willy-nillying this shit. But maybe that would be the same that you can apply to any fandom. Why did this band open with this song and not that song? Why did they release this album or this song as their lead single and not this song? Why did the football team play this way? I wonder if it's just anything that you're a fan of, you're going to do that too. And no kind of entertainment or sporting event or whatever that you're criticizing from the sidelines, none are more susceptible to it than others. Maybe just like video games and football, it's the same goddamn thing. It's like the coach would be like, yeah, I know, buddy. You think I don't fucking know that I would love to go for a touchdown on fourth down. I would love to go for a first down on touchdown. I think that would be great. But here's the deal. I also know that the quarterback just had a fight with his girlfriend and his head's not in the game right now. right? I know that whatever, I don't know all the terms. The guys who sit up in the booth who run the defense and speak down to the main coach. They're like, I know that their main guy's out today because he's having problems, and the guy they put in there is fucking aggressive as fuck, and you don't know what I know because I worked with this guy at the college level, and that motherfucker, I know what he's going to do, and there's no way we're going to get the fourth down. He will wound his players to keep us from getting a first down. That's all I'm saying. So I just don't know. I don't know. But I do agree with Bukaki that this is, I don't think Sony's doing this for no fucking reason. Like, hey, we can make a couple extra ducats. Let's fucking do it, Sparrow says, but game selection from PlayStation are games that are getting sequels, which maybe kind of hints that Days Gone might get a sequel. I don't know if you can really say that. I mean, Sony has had games on Steam as early, if I remember, the first one was Helldivers, and that, there you go, offensive defensive coordinator. That didn't get a sequel, and I think Days Gone clearly, Bend, Oregon is doing some other game now. I think that's been made pretty clear. So I don't know. I don't know if the strategy is put these on PC if a sequel's coming. Because I also think, I think it's a foregone conclusion, although they haven't announced it, that Returnal is coming. And Sony did just buy a premier port house to port to PC. Like, I forget what they were called, but they literally, one of their recent acquisitions was buying a developer whose specialty is taking console games and putting them on the computer. So I don't think they're just going to be doing this with sequel games, although I imagine anything Sony greenlights, they assume is going to be sequelized. You're pretty sure God of War got a PS5 upgrade, says Bukaki. Yeah, and I wonder how much of this upgrade will be applicable to PS5 as well. Like, it's like, oh, hey, we're dropping an update on the same day as I don't know if they did that with Days Gone. Was there an update with any of the console stuff? Okay, so Ricardo says the update is only to run at 60 frames. There's nothing else coming with it. Okay. Yeah, Spaz is asking, does 2018 God of War have a PS5 upgrade, or will it get one? If not, then I think that's dumb because not everybody's PC is close to being as good as a PS5. No, but if you have the specs to run it, even if you can't run it at the top of the line, you're still going to be able to get to play God of War. It's also $50. I mean, I know it's an old game by the time this thing comes out, but it's just, it does kind of feel, I've seen a number of people say this, but I saw somebody articulate it well tonight on a forum where he's like, now that I'm seeing everything's coming out on PC for Xbox and now PlayStation, at least their main stuff, yeah, you have to wait a little bit, but I'm starting to wonder if I shouldn't have held off on a Series X and a PS5 and just bought a beefy as fuck PC. I don't know, man. If I wasn't kind of doing what I used to do and what I do now, and I would seriously, that's, unless you have to play the newest games from the first party, in Sony, because you can do that with Xbox day one. I don't know. I don't know if I would run out and buy a PS5 anymore, or a PS6 if this is all going to be on PC. I might just save my money and spend it on that. Carlos, thank you for that super chat, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm actually looking at my screen hoping that all of I set all this shit up today to make all these things. There you go. It popped. Did this one pop? There we go. Okay, I was just making sure because I all my shit's been down on my Streamlabs OBS. But there you go. You got yourself a Little Mermaid, pal. How long will it take, says Carlos, until the hardcore gamers give up and see the future is going to be PC and mobile, David Jaffe? Well, I don't think the future is going to be PC. The future is already mobile, and the future is going to be streaming. What continually fascinates me, though, Carlos, and thank you for that super chat. I appreciate it. What continually fascinates me about game fans is you would think that we are the ones who are the most comfortable and familiar with change because technology is constantly racing ahead like a bat out of hell. And so you would think that gamers would just be like, I love my video games, I love playing this shit, but yeah, it's not always going to be physical, then it's not always going to be console, then it's not always going to be a non-service, it's going to be streaming. It just seems like there's such a resistance on the part of gamers that I would love to read a psychological report on that, or somebody to do a study and figure out what's really going on there. Because you would think most gamers are tech heads to some extent, and they know that this stuff is changing constantly. Yes, I did. Caveman says, did you hear they put a pig kidney in a brain dead guy and it worked? It might be the new go-to for organs. Vegans won't like it. I'm a vegetarian, but I like it. I think pigs are absolutely. They've been talking forever about how pigs are going to be one of the ways that we keep ourselves going and alive, because we're so similar in a lot of physiology. Hardcore gamers are on PC, says Ricardo. Console gamers calling themselves hardcore is cute. I mean, that's not a bad point. That's not a bad point. I mean, that's actually a fantastic point, Ricardo, but you can't really say that. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't be a hardcore gamer if you have only consoles, but there is a lot of truth there. If you want to be on the absolute bleeding edge of technology and the most interesting, innovative games that are happening, you need, and you know, not everybody can afford it. I can totally respect that. I couldn't afford it when I was younger. But you need to be on PC if you really, otherwise, like I've said before, it's like claiming you're like a car tuner, car nut, but you have a nice Lexus. It's like, well, that's nice, you know, but that's not, you know, you're not going to be able to compete with, you know, Dom and the family with that shit. You know what else is on PC, says Peapod? Chinese hackers. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that's goddamn true. Okay, Brian King, I'm not even going to read his comments anymore until he gets unbanned from NeoGaf. How did you get banned from NeoGaf, Brian King? What did you say? What did you say? Brian King steps in, he says, streaming won't even be a footnote in the history of gaming. It can't even get off the ground. Demand needs to be there for something to be popular. There's no demand. Yeah, not yet. We'll see. We'll see. Wait and see, good sir. Okay. Where are the best esporters? I don't know. Oh, well, yeah, they're on PC, of course, for sure. I saw that Putin this weekend sent out a congratulatory message to the Russian esport team that won the Dota International League, or whatever their thing was they were doing this week. It's pretty interesting to have a dictator of a country acknowledge video games at all, let alone esports. That's pretty fucking cool. Hang on, I ate something really weird. 1 second. You ever had that? The older I get, the more indigestion I get. Hang on. Come on, Jeff. Give a burp. Give us a burp. Give us a burp. Give us a burp. Come on. Oh, you fuck. Come on. Oh, come on. Pop for me, goddammit. Pop. 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 I'm waiting. Streamlabs, you fucker. I was doing a bit and you fucked me. Where's the little thing for Valar Games? Come on, man. Where's my pop, baby? Where's my pop? Well, the fart should be back, Bukaki, but I don't see it anywhere. Fuck this bullshit. Valar Games, thank you so much. I had the whole thing set, and it's going to go off like in an hour. I had the whole thing set to go, Valar Games. Valar Games, thank you so much for joining the Diet Soda Soldiers, buddy. I appreciate it very, very. Shut up, Bukaki, you shithead. Welcome to Diet Soda Soldiers, Valar Games. I don't have a big song and dance, although it's supposed to be set up. I spent all afternoon setting it up. But there you go, buddy. Have some dope. That's for you, Valar. Nobody else take it. That's for Valar. What's that? What's that? I'm just getting word. Oh, somebody special wants to welcome you to Gabbin' and Games, Valar Games. OBS fucking blew the fucking bit, you motherfucker. God sucks shit, man. I had everything set to go. Okay, anyway, point being is, yeah, there we go. But thank you, Valar. Really, really appreciate it. Brian King says, I made fun of some of the Game Pass numbers. They got emotional and reported me. Oh, no. On NeoGAF? Oh, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Wait, did you actually... There was no sound, but did you see the animation at least? Did the animation pop? Did that happen at least? God damn it. There's no sound on Batman? Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Oh, yeah. I need to hire a producer. Let me know if anybody wants to come fucking produce the show. Okay. Fuck you, caveman, you shithead. Okay, so am I still out of audio now? No, I'm back in audio. Fuck you. Okay, you saw the animation. There was no sound. Fuck this bullshit. All right, listen. We will talk about the Game Pass numbers in just a second. In fact, we might talk about those right now because those did come out today. But I want to talk about this. Uncharted trailer that leaked today. Now, let's be clear. Let's be fair. It isn't the final trailer. It also isn't the whole trailer. My guess would be that trailer probably represents a quarter, right? Maybe, 25, 30% maybe of the actual trailer. So, you got to judge it on that. You got to judge it on the fact that clearly the effects weren't done, I don't think, or at least the leak made it look really bad blue screen or green screen or whatever. My guess would be that even though the trailer is dropping soon, what leaked was... Because remember, I think also when the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer leaked, it also... there were some effect shots that didn't look complete. And then like a week later or a few days later, it was out and it was complete. RPG, hello RPG, good to see you. Thank you for being here, buddy. He says, a new Uncharted, haven't seen it. You can find it all over the internet. I'm surprised Sony hasn't taken it down. I'm not going to show it to you because I don't want to, get this taken down if they eventually do decide to do that. But basically, I'll describe it to you real quick if you haven't seen it. It is 90% of the trailer is Nathan Drake, a.k.a. Tom Holland, doing the Uncharted 3 version of the game where the cargo plane has all the boxes fly out the back and he's kind of running up the cargo nets and the boxes trying to get back into the plane and somebody's chasing him. And he gets up there, and then there's a quick shot of Sully kind of grunting or something. And then there's a shot of Tom Holland. When he's on the airplane thing, he's in the traditional Drake outfit. And then he's in kind of more of a suit or a tux or something. And this Scottish guy comes up to him, and he says something all kind of, unless you speak and are familiar with the way English is in Scotland for a lot of people, it's a very thick accent. And so he's like, I'm gonna take your beating, blah blah, something like that. And then Tom Holland or Nathan Drake, it's supposed to be a funny little moment where he's like, wait, like, okay, I know this is scary, but what did you just say? And then suddenly the bad guy beats up on him, and that's kind of the end. And somebody's saying that's just the trailer. It was the entire teaser, says Spaz. No, he's not Sully. Sully's Mark Wahlberg, but I think there was a shot of Mark Wahlberg. And that was kind of it, though. So, I have a couple of takeaways from this. I don't know what you guys think. The first one is, I thought Tom Holland... Okay, let's put it this way. If you are a video game fan and you are an Uncharted fan, Tom Holland looks like bad casting. I had a little bit more faith when they released that one picture of him in that sort of iconic pose with the total iconic, Drake outfit. And I was like, okay, this could work. But actually seeing him in sustained action, if you're looking for a character who looks like the video game character, or at least feels that way, like this doesn't feel that way, at least from what they've shown now. He just doesn't have the, I like Tom Holland. I think he's awesome, but he doesn't have, in my opinion, kind of that raw masculinity of a character like Drake or Indiana Jones. He's soft, and I don't mean that as a human, like he's a soft, he doesn't have any, moral fiber or anything, but in terms of just sort of, he's not the guy I would pick to go into a bar fight with me. And that's sort of what Drake is supposed to be in a lot of ways. So, but then you have to question, okay, but let's assume for the moment the number, I was going to do the math, I didn't have time or the brain for it, but let's assume the number of people that love Uncharted enough to buy a ticket because they love the game is minuscule, even though it's a huge, massive video game brand, compared to the number of people Sony needs to get into the theater to love the movie, right? And in that case, my guess is it doesn't really matter if it feels like the Uncharted Nathan Drake that we love and that we want to see on the screen, because if it's a good performance and if it's a good or great movie, nobody gives a shit. It'll be a great movie regardless, and Tom Holland will become Nathan Drake in the cinematic universe, and we're off to the fucking races. But then at that point, you have to sort of look at it and judge it as just a movie. So let's say you're someone who's never played Uncharted. You maybe have heard of it. You probably haven't heard of it, and you're just going to the movies and you see this teaser. Well, then I think you're in even kind of more trouble if this teaser is indicative of the trailer, and the trailer that's coming soon is indicative of the movie. Because there really was nothing in this trailer that was interesting, right? I mean, special effects have gotten so, just ubiquitous, like big effect scenes and big set pieces, that it's less about the big and it's more about, whoa, I've never seen that before creatively, right? Like when King Kong and Godzilla, King Kong literally takes an axe and throws it through the city and it embeds into a fucking building. You're like, okay, I've seen a lot of buildings get blown up in movies for decades now, but that, I haven't seen that before, right? This kind of just feels like, like the plane thing you would think would be some amazing moment, and I'm sure on the big screen it'll be better and all that stuff. Of course it will, non-leaked footage, but in a complete effect shot. But it was just like, okay, and the whole Nathan Drake doing the kind of like, aw shucks, like, wait, what? You're speaking Scott? Oh no, I have to get back in the fight. It's like, how many fucking times, have we kind of seen that, right? Here's what I'll tell you. I was on NeoGAF. That's the website I like to go to, or the forum I like to go to. Overall, some people like it, some people don't. But some person wrote this, which I thought was just spot on the way I feel about it, which is, this is going to be one of the most tailored focus group experiences ever made. Not 1 inch of a vision. It's like hearing AI make a pop song. That's from Tomib over on NeoGAF. I think it's absolutely right. And I think ultimately it will be a good, and again, maybe this movie will be great. I mean, you never know till the fucking movie comes out. You always got to give it a chance. But, look, assuming that the trailer reflects the movie, which is, it is like this guy says, there's no real vision. It feels like there's like 25 execs giving notes and happy they're giving notes and happy they're involved in the process. And there's nobody really with a vision guiding this fucking thing. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what it feels like. Well, if you look at the Last of Us TV show so far, that doesn't feel that way, right? That feels like they're actually trying to make something. And maybe that's because Neil Druckmann's heavily involved. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the source material is unique enough, whereas Uncharted never really was much more than an Indiana Jones brought up to modern times or a Lara Croft as a dude. So maybe it was just never going to be anything other than a movie written by committee. But hopefully, though, maybe if the movie does come out and fail, and Last of Us 2 does really well, maybe Sony will, you got to, it takes time for people to learn this shit, There is such an intoxication because of the media around movie making, even though it's not glamorous and it's not what they sell you, if you've ever worked in movies or been behind the scenes or known people behind the scenes, but they sell you that constantly. That's part of their brand. That's part of the product they sell. And so people in the industry and game industry are not susceptible to it. It's probably the reason that, Brett Ratner was going to direct God of War. Who in their right mind sitting there, and I had left Sony by then, who in their right mind sitting there was looking at this option for Brett Ratner, one of the just not only a terrible human allegedly, but not a very good director. Hey, there's the guy we should give the crown jewel of Sony IP to. Let's give it to Brett Ratner. But they just wanted to be in the business. They wanted to have a film out, right? So hopefully, if this movie does come out and it doesn't deliver, it'll be they'll go, okay, let's not do that again. Let's pick the right projects to greenlight that have enough meat on the bones. And more importantly than that, let's make sure that we're making stuff that's driven by someone. It could be an executive. I don't fucking know. I mean, Kevin Feige clearly drives a lot at Marvel, but it's got to come from a place of vision. Otherwise, man, you're going to get, I mean, again, maybe the movie will be great, but it doesn't look great. Do not give it to David Cage. No, I don't agree. What do you think about the Twisted Metal series? They cast Anthony Mackie, says Villar. Yeah, I mean, all I know on the Twisted Metal series is I've had 3 conversations with those guys. I like the pedigree, okay? I like Zombieland. I like a lot. I love Deadpool. And what they pitched me, what I like about what they pitched me, yeah, Brian King says Brett Ratner's a visionary. He's a visionary piece of shit, sir. At least allegedly. I was going to put the allegedly in there. What I like about what they're doing with Twisted Metal, though, is there is a recognition, clearly, that you can't just take Twisted Metal as the game and transfer it 1-to-1. I mean, you could do that, but I think they kind of recognize that if they really want to get a real series that has legs out of it, you got to do something different than that. I mean, how far they'll go from the source material to the point that fans may say this doesn't even feel like Twisted Metal, that's probably the biggest question I have. But I don't think they would do it out of disrespect for the source material. I think they would do it because TV is in long form narrative storytelling, is a very different medium. So I think Anthony Mackie is great. I think Will Arnett is great. I think the people behind the scenes are great. It's not greenlit yet, but I have a lot of faith in it. I'm excited by it. But I think what I'm excited by is in the same way I think that if they were to make God of War or Detroit Become Human, I don't know who owns the rights to that, which I think would be a great movie, or if they were to make, or if they're making Last of Us, I think those games come to the table already with a really good spine, a really good Bible of this is the world, this is the core story that should be told first. And, it's more about how do you execute on the vision that's already been prepared and bring it to film. Almost like if you had optioned a novel, right? And it's like, okay, well, we have to keep the essence of the novel and the story, but we have to turn it into a movie. I think with Twisted Metal is kind of like Uncharted. Twisted Metal works because it's built on the bones of zeitgeisty shit that we got from the movies, whether it's Mad Max or Smokey and the Bandit or Dukes of Hazzard or whatever. And the minute you try to make it its own thing, you have to invent a bunch of shit. And I think sometimes that works, but you have to try it. Whereas Uncharted looks like they're going almost 1-for-1, which I think is, I don't know how smart that is, but we'll find out soon together. Shan't we? We will, goddammit. Am I great? Bukaki says I'm great. Thank you so much, Bukaki. I love you. I want to make a baby. I want to make a baby with you. Listen, let's move on. I want to talk about Xbox. So, I want to talk about Game Pass, right? We're going to talk about Game Pass a little bit. I'm not pitching you Game Pass. You guys know I'm a Game Pass fan, but there was data that came out today. Let me get Trey Trimble first. Trey Trimble, yes. Is there still Pumpkin Jack in the future? You goddamn right, sir. I will be playing Halloween games. All next week will be the Halloween stuff that we're getting serious about All Hallows Eve. Now, look. I thought it was interesting. So, hang on a minute. Did I want to... Yeah, okay. So Game Pass comes out yesterday with some data where it's the headline from Totillo is Xbox Game Pass subscriptions miss Microsoft's target. And obviously, I mean, I've seen some really... You guys know I like, even though I think Colin Moriarty cleaned his clock, I very much consider myself a fan, or I think Saltiest Gamer's a good dude. I like that he's a friend of the show. I don't agree with him on everything. And he was posting this where basically like, Xbox Game Pass is a disaster. It's crashed and burned because they were only at 18 million. And none of that is accurate, right? Game Pass is actually up. Their subscriber growth was up 37%. What it missed was the goal of 48%. So they missed by 11% where they wanted to be at this point, right? Now, they haven't yet put subscriber counts out. They haven't released those since January, almost going on a year, and that was 18 million. So I don't know if the math exists out there, if the data exists out there for you to go, okay, 18 million in January. We had a target for 48%. We got to 37. I don't know if you can kind of extrapolate and figure out the subscription number, but regardless, You know, they grew 37%. And I don't know if I agree or not, Brian King. I mean, you saying they're probably under 20 million. I mean, but that doesn't really, I mean, you may be right. I don't know. None of us know. But if Brian King is saying in the chat that they're probably under 20 million, that would be weird, because if their goal was 48, well, let's just round it and say 10%, and they were at 18, and let's just say they're at 20, and they wanted to be 10% higher than 20, which, so basically they were at 18 in January, and they hope to be at, their 48% growth was 22%. Or 22 million subscribers. I don't know if that makes any sense, but maybe I'm getting the math wrong. But regardless, it's growing, but it's not growing as fast. Okay. And who knows what that means? A lot of people have theories, but there was a great article from Jeff Grubb, who I don't like personally, but I think he writes some good articles from time to time. He says Xbox Game Pass is growing, but it needs a Halo and other blockbusters. I mean, ultimately, fuck you, Spazbo. I swear to God, I will take you outside and I will put you in the shack where the horse is. I've not let the horse out of the shack in at least 4 decades. You will smell a smell unlike anything you have smelled before. That was the figure from Daniel Ahmed. They were saying growth was from July last year. I'm not talking the wrong date. So right here, Brian, look. This is from Totillo yesterday. For 12 months, Game Pass growth was up 37%. The most recent figure was 18 million. But let's move ourselves to. I mean, again, I'll discuss that with you, Brian, if you have some more facts. But this is the most recent story that's come out about it. But anyway, this is interesting because I do think this. If this starts to happen and Game Pass then doesn't grow, as much as I love it and as much as a lot of people love it, there ain't enough people loving it. But what I do think is correct about this article, or at least correct in that you can't really say this service is working or not yet. This service right now is like, for most people, is probably like Netflix, but without any really of their premiere shows. They're basically Netflix before... what was the Kevin Spacey thing? House of Cards, and their Netflix before Orange is the New Black, and their Netflix before certainly Stranger Things, right? But I'll get back to that, Brian, in just a second. No, I have not run into any problems, Armin, using Game Pass for PC, and it works great on console as well. Brian King, let me get back to that. I want to finish this first, but I will get back to your point. But what they're basically saying is that, or what Jeff Grubb is saying, which I think is correct, is that you don't really have any premiere games unless you're like me. Like, I'm playing Unsighted right now on Xbox Game Pass, and that is absolutely in my top 5 games of 2021. I mean, people in the chat recommended it to me. It is so fucking good, right? But no one's going out and subscribing to Game Pass for this, right? No one's subscribing, most people, for Unsighted. Same thing with Unpacking. It's is coming in a couple of weeks. I don't think anyone's gonna burn the house down to get a copy of Game Pass for that game, even though I think it's brilliant. Psychonauts to an extent as well. So I think until you see Forza, until you see Halo, until you start seeing these games that they really are going, this is going to move the needle, I don't think we can say yet. I think, Phil Spencer came out the other day and said, we're not done buying studios. We definitely are going to be buying more and acquiring more studios. They're sitting at 23. If you're just listening to the show, which I appreciate, I'm putting up an image of all of the studios that are currently making games that are owned by Microsoft first party. 23 studios. Some of them make more than one game at a time. Not most, but some of them do. And it's interesting because if these guys can get, and their biggest problem has been management, but if they can get on a cadence of a AA, AAA game every month and a half, which they could with 23 studios, I think you start getting, because you're 3 years to make a game. You've already got, some of them are starting to come out. Some are just getting started. Some are mid-range. and they're going to put more companies on. Then let's put it this way. If at that point, if you've got games the quality of the Halo beta, which I thought was great, if you've got games the quality of Forza, the last one, we haven't played the new one yet, which I hear is pretty much like the old one, but different tracks and better graphics. If that's not enough to get people excited about Game Pass, then I will absolutely, concede the battle and say, wow, well, you know what? I still think this was the best deal in gaming and it was brilliant. But if those changes and those additions to this lineup that you're looking at right here on your screen cannot move the Game Pass needle to get massive, what are they called? Subscribers. Color me wrong and not happily wrong. But unlike a lot of people who don't agree with this, I admit I'm wrong all the time. None of us know. We're just kind of fucking guessing. But think about that. If this group of people, this like they're not the Avengers, but they're kind of like Avengers West Coast, if you know your comic books, right? Or they're Young Justice, right? If these guys can't deliver consistently good enough games to get people to want to stay subscribed to fucking Game Pass, I don't know what to tell you. Mr. K, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, heads up, fellas. If y'all want to point someone to Jaffe's channel quickly, David.gay is officially live and redirects to the channel. I have to check that out right now. Let's type that in. Is there actually a .gay? Do I want to type this fucking thing in? David Jaffe .gay. Oh, shit. Here we go. Don't fucking get me demonetized, you motherfucker. You motherfucker. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit, Mr. K. That actually works, though. I'm just going to use that from now on. I'm going to totally use that for when I'm on podcasts and stuff. It's just go davidjaffe.gay. That's fantastic. I'd rather have one that's like David Jaffe loves Metroid, but that one's pretty good. Fuck you, motherfuckers. I hate you. Go to hell. But thank you for the money, you piece of shit, Mr. K. Okay, I want to go back to Brian's point real quick. So Brian is suggesting that this article, let's make sure we're clear here. By the numbers, for the 12 months that ended in June, which is like 3 months ago, Xbox Game Pass subscriber was up 37%, but the company set a 48% goal. Okay, so the reason they're releasing June 30th, I'm assuming, is because it says a new financial filing, and I guess March, April, May, June. Is that the end of a fiscal quarter? But regardless, there's some reason they released this data. So are you suggesting that... I don't know what you're suggesting then, Brian. So basically, they could be at 37% by June, but they could be higher or lower by today, right? So there's nothing in here that suggests they're lower than 37% or higher, correct? Fuck you, Mr. K. You're going straight to goddamn hell. Anyway, there you go. I thought that was interesting, and especially just the fact that these guys are really... God damn it, you fuck. These guys... when this gets rolling, man, can you imagine? I mean, seriously, is there anybody watching this that says that once these guys are able to put out consistent AA, AAA games, you still think Game Pass is something you would turn your nose up at? I can't get my head around how people would be willing to just shit on this. And go, oh, it's not a good service. But again, I'm not trying to sell you on it. I'm fascinated by it because it seems like such great service to me. Okay, so I want to just show you something real quick. This is news, but it's not really news. It's just a little peek behind the curtain of making video games. So Square Enix, as part of the 25th anniversary of Lara Croft, released a handful of things, including some behind-the-scenes development footage of God of War Ascension, Tomb Raider Ascension, which was more of Tomb Raider by way of a horror game, right? And I want to show you some of the stuff, and it relates to working in video games. Spazbo says, if I didn't get Game Pass for $1 for 3 years, I wouldn't have it. Well, right now, but Spazbo, are you saying once they start releasing Halo and Forza and all the new games, Tango Games Works and all that stuff, that you wouldn't be interested in having that service? Ricardo says, don't need exclusives to see value on Game Pass. At this point, I'm done with potential. Microsoft needs to walk the walk. Well, I don't I don't know how to. I mean, you're kind of. I don't know. I don't understand that. So you're saying you don't need exclusives to see value on Game Pass. Are you saying, Ricardo, that the value on Game Pass is clear? You don't need exclusives to show that value? Or are you saying your mind is made up on the lack of value and you don't need, no exclusives are going to change that? Because, yeah, I mean, at this point, you're done with potential. They need to walk the walk. I think, I mean, I would agree with that. I would say that right now, until they start putting out some exclusives that excite core gamers, you know, they're going to be a really good, hopefully successful version of Game Tap, if you guys remember that from back in the day. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing is built on the bones or in the foundation of we need to get some stuff that's going to excite people. Okay, so Ricardo says Game Pass is great right now. It is great right now. But ultimately, it's not bringing in a lot of hardcore gamers, I imagine, right? Because they're not excited about, I mean, as great as Unsighted is, they don't want to play Unsighted, right? As great as even Psychonauts 2 is supposed to be. I haven't played it yet. They didn't want to play it when it was called Psychonauts 1. So I do think that it's not about, right. No, I agree. Ricardo says Microsoft Studios have a lot to prove at this point. Right. I mean, if they can't make it work with that number of talent, then I think, you know, I would say someone's got to go and be replaced. But at that point, I think the whole division's going to go. If you can't fucking make it work, if you can't make Game Pass work with that quality of studios, then it's just a bad idea that was never going to work, and you need to sort of pack it in. But I don't believe that, because I think it's a great fucking idea. But we'll find out together, won't we? Carlos says, I'm still on the fence if I should subscribe. Can't you just, you know, I think if you literally go to the store and buy some fucking Pop-Tarts, if you buy like 2 boxes of Pop-Tarts, I think you can cut out, you get a month of Game Pass for free. Even if you don't want to sign up for the long term, like $1 for 3 years, you just want it for a month, give it a try. Spazbo says there was one game that came out on Game Pass day one I didn't know about and bought it on Steam, and it wasn't until I passed the refund that I found out. Which game was that? There's a bunch of games that do that. That's true. Mr. K says it's just going to come down to the games, the big games, right? Well, I think the big games like the big shows on Netflix. I mean, look at Squid Game. Nobody saw Squid Game coming, but everyone's talking about it, and suddenly, you know, their subscribers are going up. I mean, that's the game they're playing. You know, as much as everybody likes to say Netflix, but for games, which I do think is true, part of Netflix is they're only as good as, you know, their library of exclusives, and more importantly, they're only as good as how fast they can grow gotta see movies, right? There was this year was Queen's Gambit everybody was talking about, which was great. There's Squid Game, which everybody's talking about, which is great. They've got some good Christmas stuff coming up. They've got that Gal Gadot, Rock, Ryan Reynolds fucking thing, which I don't know if it's gonna be good or bad, but that's, you know, 3 of the biggest fucking stars in the world working together. So we'll see. But I wanted to point that out because I thought that was an interesting stat. That they released, but I really would like to get some numbers soon. And they're like, "Oh, okay, Jaffe, we'll get those. We'll get those right up. We'll get those numbers right up to you because you would like them." Okay, welcome. See, I don't understand. Well, first off, let's be clear. Vitaphone Vision Sound, thank you so much, buddy, for joining the Diet Soda Soldiers. I don't know why what just came up. You should have gotten a little can of Diet Coke popping and doing crazy acrobatics and whatnot. And alas, what happened was I just got a little message on the screen. Buddy, I'm sorry, but Vitaphone, thank you so much. You have earned yourself some pot. There you go. And how about a little inhaler for my inhaler? Here you go. Now, here's what you do with this. You got to shake it. It's like Mikey in the Goonies. And then you suck it in and you hold it for about 10 seconds and let it out. Don't swallow it. Here you go. Wait, hang on. There you go, buddy. That's for you. Thank you so much, Vitaphone Vision Sound, for joining our merry band of fucksticks. I very much appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Spazbo says, look, man, it was a game called 12 Minutes, the game with Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, and James McAvoy. I had beaten it a few times on Steam. I found out it was on Game Pass. Oh, I gotcha. Yeah. That was day one. I only played about 20 minutes or 12 minutes, and I was done with it. Mr. K says, how do we feel about an abundance of crap? Meaning there's so much junk on Netflix. Quality far outweighs quantity outweighs quality. I don't understand that complaint. I've heard that complaint about Game Pass. I've heard that complaint about Netflix. It's are you... Is it for bragging rights? I mean, what does it matter? What's crap to you? Like, oh, look, another Great British Bake Off, and this one's the Halloween theme. Well, okay, maybe you won't watch that. But are you saying there's so much crap that the frequency that you can find something to watch is rare? Then I would go, okay, well then, yeah, it's not for you. But I haven't gone. What I can tell you is we used to go to Apple TV, to iTunes on Apple TV, and we would rent movies 2-3 times a week. And now, the last time I've actually paid money to rent a movie versus subscribe to a service, it's been maybe 8, 10, 12 months since I've done that. The kids did it the other night because they wanted to watch a horror movie they couldn't get anywhere else. But other than that, so... between the subscription services I have, there's always something to watch. But, okay, Ricardo, you're saying you're overwhelmed by choice. Okay, well, that's a different problem, but sure. I'll resub to Netflix when Cowboy Bebop launches and cancel after Sandman. Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if there were invisible walls in 12 minutes. I just kind of got... I liked it. I liked 12 minutes. I just kind of got a little... got a little bored. Got a little bored. I wasn't in the right headspace. It was interesting, though. It's absolutely interesting. Vitaphone says, I don't get how people don't see the value of Game Pass. It's like a few games and you justify a year. I just got Back for Blood and that justified it alone. I mean, I'm with you, man. I'm the same, but some people just don't see it. Caveman says TV series are annual. Video games take 3 to 5. Much harder to make a video game subservice work. It might be much harder, but when I just put up, Caveman, that list of developers... I think that's how they're planning on making it work. You know, if you look at how much stuff drops on Game Pass, there's 12 fucking games that aren't first party dropping. They just announced today for November. And then they're also dropping Forza this month. And then next month is Halo. So, Mr. K says the only reason the abundance of crap, your mileage may vary, but let's assume for this discussion it's accurate. The only reason the abundance of crap might matter is that things are produced with smaller budgets and shorter production times because it only has to be good enough for Netflix. I don't care if there's crap, but it might encourage production practices to lead to crap. I would agree. I would agree with you if that was happening. But yeah, like Midnight Mass, Ricardo's talking about, is a great fucking show. That's also just came out of nowhere, that isn't even getting the accolades or the hype because Squid Game's taking up all the oxygen. But, yeah, well, see, Trey Trimble says, I haven't had Netflix for about a year and I don't miss it, but you do have Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, and Amazon. Right, it's not Netflix specifically. It's more about having one of these services or several of these services. Okay, anyway, there you go. I want to talk about this, what's on the screen right now. If you're listening to the show, this is footage from the Lara Croft game that was sort of a real early footage where they were looking at making... Oh, you can't see the screen. Where they were looking at making Tomb Raider into sort of more survival horror, and you'll see some monsters coming out of the darkness in a minute. I only bring this up not to really talk about Tomb Raider or whatever. I mean, I think that would be cool to see Lara Croft with more supernatural elements from time to time. But I bring it up because seeing this gives me so much anxiety, because when you are pitching a game and you don't have a green light yet, this kind of footage is really what you're showing a lot, right? And you get so tunnel vision when you're working on the team, because so many things that you do and that you create are these wins for you and the team. And this may be one of the reasons that Sony is really good at managing creative product development, and other studios, like maybe Microsoft, are not. Maybe they're getting better. But, you know, the team looks at something like this and says, wow, this is a great milestone. because we, got the traversal in, and we got the translucency bug fixed, and we figured out the scripting, so we have a very rudimentary puzzle in, and on and on and on. But that win really is only for the team and an executive that understands the production process well, because you really have a hard time knowing where the state of the art is and where you're going to end up, right? So I've been part of pitches where we would show Sony stuff and we would be on cloud nine because we were like, hey, this is great. We've come a long way. But these guys had just come from a meeting with, Insomniac, where they had seen, Miles Morales swinging around a city on PS5. And so it really is, in some ways it's good. It's dog eat dog. It's survival of the fittest. It really forces you to go, if I'm going to enter into this particular arena of especially AAA gaming, I have to make sure that even without the graphics, even without the polish, what they're seeing is super fucking compelling. Whereas, as an executive, I would look at this and I would be a little torn, because I would say, well, we know this is early. I have the training and I have the experience where I can look at a game like this and go, okay, I know what this is going to look like. And even then, there were times with Sony, we would show them, we would do one room that looked amazing just so they would know, okay, I know this is rough, but let us just show you what it's going to look like, just so it still brings them comfort, even with all the experience that they have. But if I was an executive looking at this and I knew, okay, this is ultimately going to look visually really good, I would struggle with this game. I would struggle wondering, so far what I've seen, is this something I would want to greenlight? Because and ultimately they didn't. But it looks so generic, and it looks so, I've played this game 1,000 fucking times. So I in some ways it's good, but it really is terrifying because, that's kind of cool. That's a moment. She's being chased she's on a horse and she's being chased by this giant fucking thing in the woods. But yeah, you never really know what production value wise is going to excite the executives, because they see so much shit. You think this is The Last of Us mixed with Silent Hill, Spazbo? It's kind of like, that's okay. That's pretty cool. If you're not watching, it is very Shadow of the Colossus, where she's running on her horse and there's this massive beast that's chasing her. I'm like, okay, I haven't seen that, or certainly haven't seen that in a Lara Croft game. That would be exciting. I hadn't seen that yet. But a lot of her just going through the halls with flamethrowers and stuff just kind of looks like, and I loved the Buffy game for Xbox, the original Buffy game. But, that's kind of what it looked like. Ricardo says that's not what Tomb Raider's about. Yeah, but I think they were to point here, because this was before they did the, that's pretty cool too. This was before they did the, Tomb Raider upgrade, where they kind of found their new voice for it. I think they were just going, what are we going to do to save this franchise? So I think they were probably exploring any and everything at that point. But anyway, it does absolutely bring back some, bad experiences of showing executive stuff and just going, we have no idea if this is impressive, or they're looking at this and going, these people are fucking jokers. You don't fucking know. You don't fucking know, because you don't know what they're used to seeing. But again, maybe the Microsoft guys have struggled for a long time because they don't know how to really look at something early. I don't know that. I'm just saying maybe that's one of their weaknesses, where Sony's pretty good at going, Scott Rhodey can go into a room with a team that's only been working 4 months, and he can still, he can suss out the magic, even though it's incredibly raw. And he can then go to a meeting with Insomniac or Naughty Dog or Santa Monica and see state of the art. And both of those things he sees the value in. But not everybody has that ability to pull that off. So Vitaphone, by the way, I want to go back because this was interesting. Vitaphone says, as of somebody who has worked on a number of films that have been targeted for streaming, I can confirm there is some validity to your point, though only from a certain point of view. I guess he's talking about the fact that it's for a streaming service, so don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be so great. I guess it comes down to what does so great mean, right? Are you talking about story and script and performance, or are you talking about effects and production value, right? I think that you're absolutely right that the production value doesn't have to be as high if you're watching it on television, but I think the storytelling has to be super fucking compelling, and we're seeing that in a lot of stuff that's just streaming specific. But anyway, all right, Primal and Mark of Kree, bring them back. Yeah, Ricardo, I don't think so. I mean, not because they're bad, but because they didn't sell very well. Come on now, you want them to make their ducats, don't you, man? Hang on. I want to tell you something. Well, actually, I want to tell you two things that are pretty fucking important. Number one, and we're going to talk in just a second. I want to talk about predictions from analysts about the video game industry in the holidays, as well as talk about sales for Metroid, for Back 4 Blood, for the NPDs in America. But first, I want to tell you something. And you may know this. I'm sure you know this, unless you're a goddamn maroon. But the holidays are coming up. And I know you got video game fans in your life who are looking for a unique gift that celebrates their love of gaming. Well, pals, I got a tip for you. If you head over to Rotten Tanuki's page and check out his whole line of Day One Patch Kids, you're going to find yourself spooning and embracing the love of really weird fandom. Who are the Day One Patch Kids, you ask? Well, imagine, if you will, they're a group of garbage pail kids who got thrown into a blender with the world's most popular video games, and you'll have a good idea of the ride that you're in for. From stickers to hats to t-shirts to towels, you get these amazingly creative, funny, high-quality character designs on all sorts of cool gift items. They even got one for Sweet Tooth and Kratos. Think about that. My favorite one is, of course, Joel in 1, which shows, I think it shows poor Joel getting his head knocked off by a golf club. You'll find a link to this great site in the About section of this video, as well as scrolling through the chat text all during the show. Click on over and get your holiday shopping started with a bang. It's Rotten Tanuki's Day One Patch Kids. Tell them Fred Anderson sent you. I don't know who that is, but you should say that when you get over to that website and see what happens. By the way, something else you should know about Spazbo's World of Long Plays. It's not called Spazbo's World of Long Plays. It's called World of Long Plays, but I'm going to call it Spazbo's World of Long Plays. I didn't really know about this site. A lot of you guys know. They got over 1 million goddamn subscribers. But this is a pretty fucking amazing site, actually. If you've been on the internet for any decent amount of time, you may have heard about long plays. Spazbo, who's one of our God of War members, is a key fellow over there. They make sure they got fast and frequent comment-free drops of all the video games that you love. They got classics. They have a whole... literally, they're going back to Game Boy Advance. They got classics from the fucking Intellivision from 81. Full playthroughs of shit like Donkey Kong and shit over there. And modern games like Back 4 Blood's up there as well. Be it a lack of time, a need for a hint, or just some of the coolest background company you need while having on in the background while you work, or do other things. Ooh, my stars and garters. I'm moist. World of Long Plays is a YouTube channel you want to sub to and return to over and over. Well, just this week alone, they got new videos up. That just dropped. I think you guys just dropped some yesterday, didn't you, Spazbo? Spazbo, did you put? You guys got a Metroid video up, don't you? A Metroid Dread video up. You can find a link below, though, to the About section in this video, or click on it as it scrolls up in the chat box. It's World of Long Plays from our very own Spazbo04, because the only thing longer than a long play is Spazbo's cock. But still, check him out and tell him Fred Anderson sent you. There you go. Jaffe says, Mr. K, do you know what analog horror is? Like analog horror? No? Do you mean like found footage horror, like VHS 94? But no, I don't. Sven, thank you for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate that. He says, Jaffe, yo, so-and-so, what are your thoughts on Ubisoft making a new Splinter Cell game? Do you think they can still pull off a good Splinter Cell experience? Well, okay, let's jump ahead a little bit, Sven, because I you know, it's interesting. I think, and yes, if you don't know, oh, hang on, I'll get back to you, Sven. Spazbo says, no, there's not a Dread on World of Long Plays yet. If you would like me to do it, I could do it for you. It only lasts about 5 minutes. But there is my Metroid Dread long play on Long Play Archive, which is another long play channel I work with. Okay. Should you make World of Long Plays gay? You're going to hell, you fuck. It is a great channel, though. It wasn't until I went over and started exploring World of Long Plays that it really is Like, I like to turn it on one of my monitors while I'm working and just let it run. It's just it's like a, it's like a Yule log, but for geeks. I dig it very, very much. Okay, so Splinter Cell, Ubisoft. Yeah, there's an announcement that they were working on a prototype, and they good morning, Avoid the Void. They may be making it, may be coming out. Here's what I think is interesting about that, Sven, is that, so Ubisoft, let me articulate this. I would be, if the only data the executives have at Ubisoft, which I know it is not, is the data that we as fans have, I would struggle if I were those guys to know how to move forward with design decisions, because you are starting to see a more and more vocal series of complaints about the Ubisoft formula getting really fucking long in the tooth and annoying, right? But what's hard about this is that just complaints, but people show up anyway? Just like with Call of Duty, people complain, but they still fucking buy it. So if you look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla immediately came out the gate last year around November, and it was the best-selling Assassin's Creed ever. And it's also, many would argue, the most bloated, overly long Assassin's Creed, probably the lowest completion rate Assassin's Creed ever. And in week number 2, Valhalla, at least in the UK, it's the only figures we got, dropped 66%. Crashed down 66%. Well, that doesn't matter, because that game ended up being one of the top 3 sellers of the entire year, not just last year, but over the last 12 months, right? Well, Far Cry 3 comes out, and Far Cry 3 is when you're getting the complaints, more and more vocal complaints about the Ubisoft formula is annoying, we're sick of it, and it's just cookie cutter. Well, that game, in its second week, has dropped 66%. So at first I was like, oh, that's a sign that people are kind of going, okay, we're walking away, but Valhalla did that too. So my answer to your question, can they pull off a good Splinter Cell experience, Sven, is, I don't know who they would be making it for. If they feel there is money in their hills to make a Splinter Cell game, but they want to do it in the Assassin's Creed cookie cutter formula, and it turns out that Far Cry 6 doesn't have the collapse, and it sells great as well over the course of the next couple of months, they might be, the market might be telling them, Sam Fisher meets fucking Assassin's Creed, go. And in that case, I don't think that would be a good game. I don't want to fucking play that game. Well, that's okay. Man, I don't know. That's kind of true, kind of not true. Here's what I don't want. I don't want to play a spy Splinter Cell game where I'm dealing with like all of these little tasks and building up my little HQ and having to climb towers and expand the map. I don't want to do any of that shit. I'm sick of that shit. But I will tell you, an open world spy adventure where I can figure out a way to get to the airport and then fly to Morocco, and there's this big set piece in Morocco, and then I get something there and I fly back to New York and there's a terror attack in New York, and it feels like you're actually living. It's almost like what you thought Agent was going to be from Rockstar. That is interesting to me. But just Splinter Cell by way of Assassin's Creed is absolutely not interesting at all to me. Spazbo said, but thank you for the super chat and thank you for the question. Spazbo says, I'm going to hang out in the call waiting room. Pull me in when you want to talk about Metroid. Okay, I'll pull you in just a second. Let me get through the sales stuff. But that would be my take on the Splinter Cell. But I loved the last 2 Splinter Cells. I thought they were great. Fuck you, Peapod. You think that sounds dumb? You think that game sounds dumb? You think a game where you go and have an open world spy adventure where you can fly all over the fucking world and have your James Bond fantasy is fucking dumb? You go to hell, son of a bitch. But I love you. Right, that's a good point. I did that last year. Carlos says, I subbed to Ubisoft Plus just to play Far Cry 6. Last Christmas, I subbed and I got to play the Phoenix Rising. I played Far Cry 5, which I hadn't played much of before. I played Valhalla, and I played one other thing, and that was kind of it. And then I was done after subscribing for 2 months. And I might, I have no intention of subscribing right now, unless they're I enjoyed playing what I played of that Riders Revolution or whatever the fuck it's called. Vitaphone, how do you call in? You put yourself in the call-in waiting room on the Discord, and I'll drag you in. Jaffe says, Mr. Rob, I do remember there being a lot more AAA games 15 years ago. Yeah, your memory is serving you well. That is absolutely 100% correct. Let me show you the charts right now. These are the NPDs just for September. Okay, so I mean, check this out. This will speak to your point about AAA, Mr. Rob. Look at this. So I want to talk about these in a minute, but you're still seeing Valhalla is still there, Animal Crossing, Modern Warfare from 2019, Mortal Kombat 11, Mario Kart 8, Tsushima. I mean, these are well over a year old fucking games. And yeah, it's because they cost a lot of fucking money, and because they try to keep them service-based. Even after you buy them, you want to keep buying them and get your friends to buy them because there's new content coming. It's one of the reasons I do love PC and I love Steam so much, because as much as some people may hate indie games, fuck it, man. I get new games all the goddamn time. Whether it is on Game Pass, because they release a lot of those, or just over on Steam or itch.io or any of these weird, Red Candle Games has their own site. Oh my God, man. I need fresh. I have ADD, man. I need new shit. Ricardo says, I liked Phoenix Rising. I did too. It was cool if you like Breath of the Wild, but it was way too bloated and big. Right. It was overwhelming to me. I didn't want to play it. But let's talk real quick. I'll bring these calls in just a second. I want to talk about the charts real quick. This is, we'll talk about America first. Just some interesting things here. Madden, FIFA 22, NBA 2K22, top 1, 2, 3, right? Call of Duty Black Ops, number 7, was number 3 last week. People can Diablo, number 5 from Activision. People can complain online, but part of me just wants, it's like, it's so clear when you look at these charts how small the bubble is of video game fans online, which isn't to say they're insignificant and not worth, paying attention to. But no one cares about Activision being a shitty company. They're still showing up for Diablo. No one cares about how buggy NBA 2K21 was. They're still showing up for the new one. No one cares about all of the pay to win in FIFA, or Madden's the same every year. They just don't care. They just show up year after year after year. So I ask you, as I always ask you, if you were an executive and you were not doing this, you'd be a fucking moron. Trey Trimble says, heading off to play some Outlast 2. Thank you, buddy. Good night, everyone. Happy October. And Jaffe, thank you so much for the great. Thank you, Trey Trimble. It's always good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. I'm with you, Peapod. I was very happily surprised, even though I'm not a fan of the series. I'm not terribly familiar with the series. I do hear Colin Moriarty talk about it a lot, but the Tales series. But Tales of Arise coming in at number 4, that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty fucking good. I don't know about Deathloop coming in at 6. 6, I mean, okay, you really got to assume Deathloop came in at number 3, because you're not going to topple Madden, FIFA, or NBA. So given that, that's a pretty good fucking number. I don't know if it's franchise worthy. Like, I don't know if now that Deathloop 2, if they ever make it, would be a Game Pass exclusive. I wonder if Arcane is going to go, oh, let's keep this going, or if they're going to go. I mean, Arcane does this, man. If I was Microsoft, I would, in the same way, I could be wrong, don't shoot me here, but and I didn't love Deathloop. I respected it, but I didn't think it was that compelling after you got over the hump of what it was. Deathloop to me reminds me a little bit of Days Gone, in the sense that as much as a lot of people love Days Gone, and I'm one of the people who love Days Gone, Sony looked at it and said, that's not good enough. It's not compelling enough. It's not where we want to be. I could be wrong on this, but I would look at Deathloop in much the same way. I would look at Deathloop and I would say that game was great for a one-off, but you guys need to find something that is more commercial. and I don't mean like, just whore yourselves out, but whether you're talking about Deathloop or you're talking about Dishonored, both of those are so playing to like, they have their foot too far in the arty farty realm. And I think Microsoft needs to, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I think they would do wise not to rein them in creatively, but to say, bring your crazy Harvey Smith energy, because the guy's a fucking genius, made one of my favorite games of all time, Deus Ex, but bring that energy into something that's just a little bit more commercial. I think they would do well for doing that. Let me bring in these calls, because afterwards I do want to talk a little bit about what happened to Metroid, Back 4 Blood, and Far Cry over in the UK, and then we'll talk a little bit about Aliens. Minecraft is still in there as well. That's right. I mean, all you have to do to see it laid out in real life is go to E3. Compare the amount of games they had at E3 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to the amount of games they have now. It's not even a show worth going to at this point. All right, I'll bring in Vita, then I'm going to bring in Spaz. Vita phone, it's Jaffe. What's up, man?
Hey, just calling in. I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of the issue around streaming models affecting, kind of the quality of films.
Okay. Yes. What do you do in films? You're saying you work in films that stream. What is your job?
So I've worked anything from sound design, on set stuff. I've worked as a DP. I've done a lot of different things. I've been in freelance film for about 15 years. So.
Okay. All right. Sven, I'll get your super chat in a second, buddy. All right. Keep going, Vita.
Sure. So I can say that Mr. K had a pretty good point about when you get into the streaming, like what's kind of done to the industry is lowered the bar for like, hey, we just got to get this done. A lot of companies tend to work in independent film, kind of like spec home builders, where they build neighborhoods and then just turn around and sell them. A lot of companies now, they've made a business model of just kind of like Roger Corman Presents type stuff, where they just make as many things as they can that check off enough boxes to just sell them to streaming services in foreign territories. I think that while that is an issue that some people are concerned about on Game Pass, I think the silver lining that I don't think a lot of people maybe are thinking about is that might give rise, if that potential quote unquote dark future happens, where it's like we just got to slap together as many products as we can, that might give rise to a lot more like A tier and B tier gaming kind of coming back, where they're just greenlighting a lot more projects, on smaller size budgets to fill that pipeline of Game Pass, which actually I think could inadvertently actually be a silver lining to us seeing more kind of diversity in like not quite indie but not quite AAA tier games.
I agree. I've said that for a long time, and maybe it's having grown up with VHS as the dominant format. Because when you mention Roger Corman, a lot of people don't even know really what you're talking about. But Corman was the guy, who not only gave a lot of filmmakers their start, but he was also the guy, along with Canon Films and some really bad creators, that literally would make a poster. It would be like, okay, it's about somebody would come in and I think he would like give bonuses to his team of like $500 for anyone who had the idea of like, okay, it's about a killer tire or a killer tomato. Okay, go make a poster, and if the poster sells at one of these various film markets, then we'll get the money to make it, and we'll have our and I think what you got from that is, you got a lot of crap filling the shelves at VHS stores, but you also got a lot of you got a lot of classics that people would have never made otherwise, and you got a lot of things that were made for very specific audiences because the barrier of entry was lower. So I think we see that happening on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, there are documentaries now that really are worse than documentaries I've seen at the USC Student Documentary Festival, but they're about things that are really interesting to niche people, right? So like for
Sure.
me, there's literally a documentary that doesn't look very pro, but I don't care because it's about a guy who his dream was to open up an arcade, and he opened up an arcade and it just was a disaster and he had to close it down. But it's like, that's never going to be something that's going to get millions of dollars to make, but now it has a platform to go out to people who care about it. So everything from that to the fact that you are seeing a lot of really talented people like Scorsese and all these big actors and directors coming into television, and we're getting gems like Squid Game. I'm not an optimistic guy all the time, but when it comes to that, I've seen nothing but upside as a consumer of media from subservices. And I struggle to understand how that's not going to happen with video games if these take off.
Right. Yeah, I just really think that is the major silver lining, is that, like, as someone who's been gaming since, the Nintendo era, seeing after the 360 era and the PS3, a lot of that market of A tier and B tier good, there'd be some really good games that would come out that now they just don't want to, they don't want to fund something that big.
Oh, and that's, that's what I miss. I like more games like that, like Shadows of the Dam or whatever. I like games that I don't need everything to be, it's like Peapod was saying, there's much less AAA games because they cost a lot more, but I like stuff like Maneater, and I like stuff like Shadows of the Dam, and I don't need everything to be a super big deal Game of the Year winner. I just want to have some fun sometimes. I will say one other thing that I do when people push back on all the crap on these services, maybe it is because, and I guess you were an NES kid, so you have a similar experience going into video stores, and I don't even really mean Blockbuster. I mean mom and pop video stores, but Blockbuster had a little bit of this too. It was a joy to walk the store and just go through stuff that was like, what the fuck is this thing, right? I love sitting down and just scrolling through Netflix, like their horror section, and go, what the fuck am I looking? I think it's fun, but some people seem to really hate that shit.
Yeah, I mean, even just the huge list of, devs that Microsoft has now. Yes. If all of those, if like 20% of them is working on, AAA, like they're swinging for the next Call of Duty or whatever the next thing that like hooks people. But if the rest of those developers get to make A tier or B tier titles, you with that many talented developers, you're gonna get good games out of that.
Yeah, they really got to get their cadence going, so they keep releasing though. That's going to be the trick, and I know they know that. So, all right, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for subscribing to our little band of fucksticks. I appreciate it, and thanks for the call. Call back anytime, man. I appreciate it, bud.
Cool, thanks, Dave.
All right, dude. Spaz, I'll bring you in a second. Let me tell Muscle Nerd, thank you so much, buddy, for subscribing to the Diet Soda Soldiers. I don't fucking know what's happening at this point. You got totally the wrong message. I'm going to work on it, but for now, have some Tic Tacs. That's for you, pal. And have some pot. And have this baggie of chips that I snuck up my butthole earlier today because I'm practicing being a drug mule. I appreciate it, Muscle Nerd. Thank you so much for being a member of the Diet Soda Soldiers. And, oh yes, Armin, the documentary about Canon Films is great. The documentary about Roger Corman is great. Canon Films is better in the sense that Canon Films made just such schlock and crap that the documentary about that is more fun. But Corman is more of an actual filmmaker and a producer, and in that you don't get as many this guy's insane stories, but Corman's a fucking legend that, gave Ron Howard, I think Scorsese worked with him, James Cameron worked with him. So absolutely give them both a watch. Fuck you, Mr. Rob. Aquadronic says, I wake up in the middle of the night and Jaffe's streaming. You goddamn right, sir. Good to see you, buddy. And then we got a super chat from Sven a little bit while ago. Let me read this. Thank you, buddy. He says, is there a high turnover rate for game devs at studios? Example, the chances of 2002 Splinter Cell team is all but gone. I mean, yeah, there is a high. I mean, there is a... I guess, some developers retain better than others, like any other company. But for a team to stay together for over 20 years is relatively rare. Like, even if you look at Sony Santa Monica, most of the people that I worked with, like if I went into that office today, I wouldn't know 90% of those people. Most of the God of War team is gone. They had a huge exodus, not exodus, but they had well, Max Ankar, who's a friend of the show, and he calls in and talks from time to time, literally left a couple of weeks ago, or like last month. And that guy was there pretty much from day one, doing all the effects on God of War 2005 up until working on Ragnarok. So, you know, the fact that he's out, and he was really in a lot of ways one of the heartbeats and souls of that studio. I don't think you get teams staying together for that long. So, I mean, I don't know what the chances are of the Splinter Cell team being together. And sometimes things do come back together. Like, we made Twisted Metal 2 in 96. And then we brought everybody back, even though a bunch of us had splintered off in 2001. The guys making the new spiritual successor to Dead Space, they've brought a lot of those teams back together. So it's possible that if Ubisoft is going, we want to actually make what the fans are asking for, let's bring some of those key people back. Yeah, it's absolutely possible. But in terms of organically staying together, I don't think that tends to happen all that often. Okay, let me bring in good Sir Spazbo. One moment. Spazbo, what's up, man?
Hello.
Well, hello, sir. What's going on?
So I wanted to talk about Metroid.
Yeah.
With you obviously don't care much for Dread, but
I don't know. Did you happen to see the interview, the conversation I had with Gene Park the other day?
Yeah, I watched most of that.
Well, I mean, I don't think I don't care for Dread, in the sense that I think a lot of people think I think Dread is crap. I don't think it's crap. I just don't think it's for me. And I think there's some fundamental bad game design in that game, but I don't think it's crap. And when Gene explained more of really what he liked about Metroid, I was like, oh, I've not looked at Metroid that way ever before. And that's interesting. So I might even go back after talking to Gene. But yes, I definitely do not share the Metroid love that is going around the fan base right now. I do not.
Well, I wanted to say that Metroid has never been one of Nintendo's most popular franchises.
Correct. That's right.
If you look at like the sales of all the previous games, the most sold one was Metroid Prime back in 2002.
Okay.
And like half of them barely even make 1 million sold.
Right. Right.
I also wanted to talk about, I recently, right after I beat Dread a couple times, I went back to Mercury Studios, or whatever they're called, Mercury Steam, the previous Metroid game that they did on the 3DS. And there's a lot of things that carried over from the 3DS one, but there's also things that the 3DS one did better than the Switch game.
Okay.
That
What do you think the main thing they did better than the Switch game on the 3DS version?
How you could explore the map, mainly. They did, it's a power up you get like in the first 10 minutes of the 3DS game, where it is like an environment scan.
Oh, right. That's right. And people have been telling me, Jeffy, you should have used that. I'm like, they don't give you that at the beginning.
Well, that was me, because I didn't play the game yet, and I didn't know if it was in the game.
No, a lot of people have told me that. It is in the game, but it's later in the game.
It's way later. Yeah. I didn't find out until I played it myself. But in the 3DS one, they give you it in the first 10 minutes as the second upgrade in the game. And it does two things, that it shows you those hidden blocks where they are on screen, which is a godsend for you, because it would definitely help you figure out where those hidden blocks are, like
right.
Get into that one room. And then it also explores part of the map, because the map's on the second screen at all times.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's how I played Harmony of Dissonance from Castlevania, and I love that. It was much easier. But and I assume the map was less confusing and convoluted on the 3DS just because of
The map
necessity.
looks closer to the Castlevania kind of maps that you like.
Right. So yeah, I mean, look, I am curious how it does in sales. I know, that they dropped 63% in their second week. They're still at number 3, at least if you're looking in the UK. But again, like we established, I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla dropped 66% in week 2, and it was still one of the number 1 games of the last 12 months. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but Dread might be a little bit of a different story if you're saying that historically it has been a franchise that doesn't really sell all that well. I don't see anything that I've seen in Dread that makes me go, oh, they've totally made this more, they've made some changes that are going to make it more commercial. I mean, have you seen anything when you've finished it multiple times?
Well, I wanted to say that in the 3DS one, that scan feature really, really helps. But that game is one of the worst selling games in the franchise. It's like the second worst.
Okay.
If the chart I'm looking at is correct.
And
it's quite sad.
Well, do you think, I mean, what was it good? Like, I guess what I'm trying to get my head around is like the Prime games were the first person shooters, right?
Yeah, I never really cared for those ones.
Right. So I mean,
honestly.
but those almost have to get pulled out of the chart, correct? I mean, because it's Metroid, but it's a very different game, right? I mean, just to compare that, it's a much more commercial perspective. I think Metroid Prime was marketed a lot more than a 2D Metroid on the 3DS. I mean, I could be wrong, but if I remember hearing a lot about Prime from Retro Studios versus hearing about the 3DS game, for example.
Yeah, I don't really know about that because that was almost 20 years ago.
Right.
Back when I was a little baby.
Well, do you think that Metroid Dread is going to continue it's front-loaded, the fans love it, but it's not really going to change the perception of Metroid? Or do you think this is the one that's going to move the needle and take Metroid to that next level?
No, the only way that Metroid could be taken to the next level is if Metroid Prime 4 comes out.
Okay.
But like you said, that's like a completely different ballpark.
Yeah, I mean,
Metroid.
Yeah, you're kind of damned with the fans if you do, but you're damned with the market if you don't, right? I mean, unless this game was really inexpensive. It's interesting because the Mercury Steam guys follow me. I just realized they follow me on Twitter, and I followed them back. I'm going to send them a DM tomorrow and just go, hey, will you guys come on the show and talk to me about your game design? Because, I mean, Bukaki's in the chat going, I literally called their game crap. I didn't call their game crap. I called the part I was dealing with. I said, this is utter fucking crap. But I wasn't saying the whole product was crap. But what's interesting about it, though, is I have gotten so many Metroid fanboys pushing back on me saying, we don't have a problem if you don't like the game, but you called us idiots and all this. And I'm like, dude, or you called us morons. I'm like, it's like all I can equate it to, Spazbo, is like being a sports fan. And it's like I might look at Alabama fans when we're playing Alabama and go, you're the worst fucking fandom in the world. I hope you fucking die on the way back home. Well, I don't really think that. I don't really think they're morons. It's just sort of the fun trash talk one does when you're talking trash. But these guys literally think that I think they're morons. I mean, some of them are, but, that's a different reason, though. Not because they like Metroid. Am I right, Spaz? Come on, man. Throw me a fucking bone.
Well, I wanted to say that the room that you kept getting stuck in.
Yeah.
I looked it up. I was, curious because I heard something about the game needing a patch to patch a soft lock.
I heard that, yes.
I typed in Metroid Dread soft lock, and I saw a bunch of posts of people getting they thought they were soft locked in the beginning of the game where you were. They just they had no idea they had to shoot the ceiling.
They did not. I have been vindicated. You're telling me.
People, it's like one video with 1,000 views and a bunch of forum posts.
Well, all I will tell you is I've had so many people come at me and they've said, Jaffe, you're the only one that had this problem. Well, I talked to Gene yesterday, and he's telling me a bunch of people have gotten stuck there that he's seen. And now you're telling me that as well. And I'm just like, that's that. I don't mean it's good to hear. I don't want anyone to ever dislike a game if it's a good game. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not a fucking moron. The game doesn't do... here's what I'll tell you. Gene did a great job. And if some of these fucking fanboys really wanted more people to get into Metroid... then they would probably be like, you know what, guys, it's kind of opaque and it's obtuse and it's weird, and maybe we could, as the fans, do a better job of letting people know what the fuck this thing is about. I'm totally down for playing it a third time now that I've talked to Gene.
Well, here's what I have to say is that if they gave that scan ability much earlier in the game,
Yeah.
like they did on the 3DS one, no one would have any problems.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I got a fun toy. I'll play with it. Ooh, you know.
But
So-
I will 3DS one, in terms of the combat against the bosses, because it's like on the handheld and it's a fast-paced action game, it's actually a lot harder on the 3DS
Right.
because of the controls. But on Metroid Dread, it's the combat at least is much easier. Even
it.
if you're using the Joy-Cons just as a controller, it's actually a lot easier than the 3DS one.
Right. All right. Well, I will give it a play again, just because, like I said, I want to approach it now more with what I know from that conversation, and maybe Mercury Steam will come on as well. All right, Spaz. I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you, sir.
All right, bye-bye.
Yes, indeed. Kirstoff, I'll bring you on in just a second. I do want to talk about Back 4 Blood real quick. Back 4 Blood debuted at number 4 in the UK. Over 80% of sales were on PlayStation. Well, that's not a surprise. We know why, because you can get it for, quote, free on the Game Pass. But it is interesting that, yeah, Metroid stayed, but they dropped 63%. Far Cry dropped 66%. FIFA, of course, number 1. And everything else is stuff that we've fucking seen up there. You know what I thought was the most interesting about the data that came out though this week are these predictions. And I should see if I can get him on the show. He follows me, Matt Piscatella, who's an industry analyst. He did his predictions for the holiday season, and most of these are obvious, but one surprised me. No relief expected for console hardware. Sure, we know. Subscription and mobile will continue to thrive. Certainly mobile. It says subscription services have grown 7%. I don't think he's wrong. I think when Forza and Horizon hit, I can't fathom. Yes, I will get to Aliens in just a second, Mutant Mo. I cannot fathom people will not jump hard into to Game Pass, but we'll see. Nintendo leads the hardware market in sales, PlayStation in dollars. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't fucking know why people like the goddamn Switch as much as they do. And I am a Nintendo fan. I've been a Nintendo fan since fucking before it was the NES, when they were fucking putting arcade games out, okay? But certainly the NES and on. There's not a lot to play on that fucking thing. At least I know there's indie games and stuff, but I don't know. I don't know how that thing's the big hit that it is, but it is what it is. Good for them. This one was interesting, though. Call of Duty Vanguard, he says, will be the quarter's best-selling game, but watch out for Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. This one fascinates me. Unless they are selling the Definitive Edition for like $19, and they haven't announced when it's coming out even. The release will feature Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas in one package, including visual improvements and modern gameplay enhancements. Who the fuck wants... Grand Theft Auto, those games are great, but is there a real desire to go back and play Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas? Now that you've got all these other open world games that have come along, you've got a new, I don't know when the new Saints Row is out. I think that's next year. Why would you want to go back and play these fucking old games? I'm sure some people would, but enough to see that not Call of Duty out of the holiday #1 spot, that is very difficult for me to believe. But, this guy, that's his job. He watches the market. He calls the shots based on sales and NPD reports, and there you go. So that is his prediction. I don't understand it, but I'm in no position to counter it other than to say it just doesn't make any goddamn sense to me one goddamn bit. Okay, we're going to talk about Aliens in 1 second, but I want to bring on Kiristafa. Kiristafa, it's Jaffe. What's up, man?
Hey, Jaffe. How you doing? Long time no see.
I know. Where you been, you son of a bitch? I've been leaving the porch light on for you and everything.
I've been busy playing a lot of video games. I recently finished Metroid Dread, and I'm halfway through Back 4 Blood. So yeah. Okay,
all right. Well, do you realize every night Peapod writes me on the Discord and says I miss Kiristafa, and I'm like, dude, maybe he died. Maybe he died like in a car crash. I don't know where he went, but he's gone.
No, really? I'll send Peapod a message. I'll send him like a cake. Like, wow.
Yeah, he's crying. What's up, man? What do you want to talk about?
I just kind of want to talk about like Metroid Dread because I played the game and I've been a huge Metroid fan for like almost 20 years, and I don't have a platform. If I make a video, no one's gonna watch it. But the thing is like I like the game, but the first half of the game is kind of crap. Like, no offense to the game, and just there's actually things. It's weird. There's actually things in older Metroid games that have better game design than Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread kind of has like some bad game design, but I would recommend you at least try to give it a second chance because somewhere towards the game you get the Morph Ball upgrade.
Right.
That made the game like a million times more fun. And it's
Okay.
just, there's also like the thing I liked about Metroid Dread was there were key moments in the game that just felt really, really good that you just don't see in a lot of other games. But I feel like what so many people are doing is like they're just taking the good stuff, right? They're taking the good stuff and be like, oh, this is amazing, this is great. But then the moment you start complaining about, no, that's bad, there's some actual bad game design, the levels are a bit too big, and just transporting from one area to another is not that hard, then most fans are kind of like, no, you're just being negative. But
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I've heard people say the reason they're that way is because they know that if this game doesn't really fly off the shelves digitally and physically, they may have to wait another 20 years or 15 years or whatever to get another one. But that said, though, yeah, I mean, I certainly, I certainly didn't love my experience so far, but I am going to give it another try. Answer me one quick question. So Spazbo is not the only one to bring up the fact that you get this ability to scan the environment for secret areas later in the game. Why do you think they held off so long in giving you that? Why do you think, unlike the 3DS version, they gave it to you almost right away? Why do you think it's buried so deep in this one?
Well, the 3DS game was actually kind of a remake of a Game Boy game, so they just went off the schematics of the Game Boy game, whereas Dread was their own original map, where Mercury Studio was kind of like, okay, we can make a brand new map now.
Right.
So that, I would say that's like the big thing. And another thing is like, regardless of what people say, Metroid Dread's not like 100% free roam, open world, you can go wherever you want, that kind of stuff. It's a mix of like half linear, half open world, and in my opinion, it's not the best. Like, I got lost a lot, I had trouble a lot. I figured it out, I did figure it out, but it took a long time. And I think it's because the guys at Mercury Studio, they really wanted you to kind of like flow through the game, like you have nothing in the beginning, and then over time you get more gear, and then finally at some point you feel like a badass. You're like, wow, I am a superhero. I am superpowered. That's really what they wanted to get you, but it's just like, man, like those first 2 hours, like I remember playing the first 2 hours, I hated it, I didn't like it, but I pushed through, and because I pushed through, I got something cool. But if you don't push through, then you miss out on something, and that sucks, in my opinion. I think that's just terrible.
All right, well, I will go back to it, and I'll give it a playoff stream, and I'll let you know what I think. Buddy, it's good to hear from you again. I hope you've been safe, you're doing well, and I hope we'll see you around these parts sooner than later.
Thanks.
All right, see you, bye.
Good day,
You too, man.
Bye.
All right, Turbo Josh has flown in on his little bird. Turbo Josh, is Chaffee. What's going on, man? Turbo Josh, where are you? Turbo Josh. While we're waiting for Turbo Josh to get his shit together, Vitaphone says GTA, the definitive edition, will have new control schemes and is rumored to be running on a new engine. I'm excited about it. Spaz says San Andreas may be 16 years old, but I still hear people talk about it all the time. Mr. Rob says, I would love to revisit that world. Yeah, so, it sounds like I might be in the minority there as well. And it might be an age thing, right? I mean, if you were like a 10-year-old when GTA 3 came out, perhaps it really holds a very sacred place in your heart. Whereas for me, I was already working in the industry for 10 years at that point, give or take, and I loved it. I thought it was cool, but I don't really have that same nostalgia for it. Turbo Josh, are you there? All right, well, you are in, Turbo Josh. If you want to start talking. In the meantime, let's talk about Aliens for a little bit. 7 weeks after launch, says the headline. This is from Kotaku. Let me show it to you. Fewer than 800 people are playing Aliens Fireteam. Now, I think this is on Steam. Obviously, it's on a couple of different platforms. let's see where yeah, they're getting this from Steam. So, the reason I wanted to talk about this, I mean, I have the game. I haven't gone online with it yet. I've played it, on my own, like the single player, just kind of because I wanted to play around, see what it was like. And I haven't really spent too much time with it beyond that. And I keep meaning to go back to it, but there's so much competition, whether you're talking the Halo beta, the beta for Battlefield, the actual release copy of Back 4 Blood, that itch is being scratched by so many other things. But what's interesting about, I mean, I don't think it's a bad game. And people say that, like, I think Mutant Mo really loves this franchise. So I think if you love the franchise, you love the game. If you don't love the franchise, it just seems like a solid, well-made, but nothing special co-op PvE experience. That's my take on it from what I've played. A lot says if a game is boring for hours before improving, that's a design flaw. I think it is, but your mileage will vary. I think you're talking about Metroid, but yeah, that is a design flaw in my opinion. Hang on, let me see what's going on with Turbo Josh. Turbo Josh. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working, dude. You can put yourself in again if you wanna talk, buddy. Okay, so my thoughts on Alien, though. There are a couple things. One is, again, it's just another example of if I were to get back into video games, I would never want to work on a multiplayer-centric title again. The last 3 games I did were those, and the amount of work and blood and sweat and tears that go into making a multiplayer game. It's so many concessions you have to make to the gameplay and so many specialties that you have to hire to bloat the budget. Not to say they're not worth it, but you need programmers, for example, that know how to make these games and build these games. And if you come out the gate and you are not a hit, you're fucked. And you're fucked within a day. We knew we were fucked within the first weekend on Drawn to Death, right? But it's funny because, I mean, our highest concurrent was about 10,000. Their all-time peak on Steam, anyway, was 15,000. And we were giving our fucking game away for fucking free. So, I mean, it's a fucking bloodbath out there. But the thing is, this is interesting. Like, I was thinking about this when I was driving today. It's like, if I was an executive, I would have a hard time looking at this and going, don't greenlight it, right? Because how do you not hear the pitch? How do you not hear the pitch of it's basically Left 4 Dead, but with the Aliens license, and go, yes, please, can we have that tomorrow? Because that sounds fucking great. But I wonder, though, if the Aliens license is what it used to be. I mean, Prometheus didn't do that well, and what was the Alien Covenant didn't really set the world on fire, even though I enjoyed them both. So it's not like Aliens is a big premier brand right now. And the people who really love it and respond to it are probably older. And so maybe the license isn't as strong as we assumed. That's part of it. Part of it also is I really think there's got to be another way. Like we've talked a little bit about this before, but hear me out. There's got to be another way to approach multiplayer-centric games. And I think it's one of two, if not both of these things. The first one is, I think these games need to come out much earlier. I think there need to be more minimal viable products coming out just to test if the idea alone is compelling. Because it's not like Aliens Fireteam Elite, at least what I played, the game was probably playing the way it's playing now, probably a year ago in terms of the core essence of what it is. Obviously, the visuals weren't there, the effects weren't there, the sound wasn't there, but you would be able to know, is there any kind of fucking magic here? And if there's not, maybe you kind of walk away and you say, it's not working, or let's head down, come back in 6 months, try again. But it's so clear, like unless a year ago it had all this great magic in it and they kind of ripped the fucking thing out, I don't know. So part of it is I think these games need more minimal viable products. I also think that you probably don't need to break the bank on them. I mean, Aliens fans, I know people won't like this. I mean, Mutant Mo might have a better view on this because he is a fan of the franchise. I mean, I like the franchise, but he seems to really like the franchise. But you know, if they did a version of Aliens and it had the Aliens franchise, but it was like, you know, lo-fi graphics at first, like if it was like Dusk, I mean, I'm serious. If it was like total low poly, took almost no money and time, it was just to see if it's fun, and they put that on the market, and then it was like, holy shit, people love this. Okay, now let's spend some money to make it. That scared me. That really did scare me. If they put if they put it out on the market and it's like, hey, this is working, let's spend some money there, and let's keep going. But this idea of completing a game, packing it up, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, spending millions, putting it out, only to find what? How many days has this been? They're saying only to find 55 days later they can't keep 1,000 fucking people playing this goddamn thing. I mean, that just seems irresponsible. The other thing I will say is this concept of going, these games all have to be running 24/7. I think that needs to be rethought. I really, really fucking do. Like when I was, you know, not that much younger, but like 15 years ago, there was the show, and it's still on TV, right? But there was the show Dateline, right? And Dateline on NBC was this massive phenomenon. It's similar to like when Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was this phenomenon, and suddenly ABC started putting it on every night. And they started going, it was on Tuesday, then it's Tuesday, Thursday. Then it was like 3 days, then fuck it, Dateline and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire every single goddamn night of the week except Saturday, these fucking shows were on. It may be that some of these games could be successful, but they really don't need to be running 24/7. Like, you know, if you're Sony or if you're a publisher and you've got a stable of these games, you know, maybe it is more like a TV series back in the old days of broadcast TV, where it's like, look, every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday afternoon is Aliens. And then the other days are this other multiplayer game we've got. And on Fridays, we're putting out things that are, you know, if you pay to be in the club, you get to play some of our minimal viable products and test things out with us and give us your feedback. But maybe they need to budget in this idea that a lot of these things, because of competition and whatnot, they're not really built to run 24/7. I don't know if that would work, but there just seems to be, everybody can't eat at the same table. Everybody can't play at the same high-stakes table. That doesn't mean these games shouldn't exist. But to put Aliens out in the same month, in essence, of Back 4 Blood and Halo and Battlefield and Call of Duty, and expect it to, I don't understand. I don't understand. It just seems kind of not wise. Josh Spears, I appreciate it, buddy. He drops a super chat. He says, "Sup, David? Hope you're having a great day." I am, sir. I'm having a great night. It is 1 o'clock in the morning here in San Diego, but I'm having a great time being up talking games with you sons of bitches. Thank you so much for that super chat and the support, buddy. I appreciate it. Caveman says, now you're asking customers to schedule when they play the game. That won't work. I mean, it works for some things. It works for television, or at least it used to. I'm not, by the way, I'm saying between minimal viable products, making some of these games a lot less budget and spending the money after it has been shown to be a hit, then you spend the money on graphics and production value, and or limiting when these games are available. I think something's got to give, man. I mean, I would struggle now if I was working at whoever, I guess Disney now, because they have the rights to Aliens, but I would really wonder about, I mean, this would have been a no-brainer to me. I can't imagine that this was a hard thing to greenlight. But alas, it's probably not going to do that well. I mean, the article says, oh, it's because they don't have new content. You know, I don't have the data to tell you how much new content matters on a game that's not flying. New content on a game like Back 4 Blood or Call of Duty matters. New content on a game that people have already abandoned. If you've abandoned, like if somebody came out with new content for Knockout City, which I thought was fun for a couple of days, I'm like, holy shit, man. They have a campaign in Knockout City. So what? I've moved on, you know? Jorge says that would be a bad idea because of time zones. The ideal time zone for someone in Europe would clash with someone from India. Well, that's why you'd have like 3 of them a week. I mean, let's put it this way. We've seen it kind of work when you have the Halo betas on the weekend. It's like, look, this is when we're running the beta. We're going to run it for 40, if they ran it for 24 hours, but not 7 days a week. If Aliens was, Tuesday morning to Thursday morning, nonstop, and then they pulled it, maybe. Raised by Wolves, I have not watched. I know it's Ridley Scott, though. Anyway, reality is I don't know the solve, but this is a heartbreaking situation. Again, no one's asking me, but I would never go back into multiplayer game design at this point for online. I think it's an absolute, it's a fucking heartbreaker, and you just don't fucking know. You just don't fucking know what's going to hit, even if it's good. So I would have much rather seen a single-player alien adventure for $20, low graphics, and just gone to have a good time. But, hindsight, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Hey, I'll tell you what, man. I'll tell you what. Mr. K, I did answer your question. I don't know if analog horror is VHS 94. What do you mean? Define analog horror? I will watch it eventually, Ricardo. I've just got so much shit to watch. I want to tell you something though, okay? I don't know, by the way, how well Hot Wheels is doing. It is absolutely one of my favorites of the year. I don't know when it came out. I don't see it anywhere here. I don't think it's on the British charts either. My guess is it's probably not setting the world on fire. But that is a game. They just announced their first DLC. And holy cow, man, I'm in. I am so fucking in. The first one is DC Supervillains. And these, I think, are going to be free. You've got Black Manta, Cheetah, Deathstroke, Bane, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn cars. And then you get a bunch of stuff to decorate your basements with and all that stuff. But then coming up, and the cars are okay. I don't look at this and go, wow, they fucking look awesome. I just go, okay, whatever. But I love this fucking game. Think it's fantastic. But then they're coming out with the Batman expansion, and this is going to be paid, and I will be buying this. This is December 2nd. And this has new vehicles that actually look, really fucking cool. Like, you can get the Batmobile right now in Hot Wheels. I have it. It doesn't look very good. But let me show you the cars. You can get the Penguin, which looks great. It's got a big top hat. You can get Robin, looks great. Armored Batman, I can't really see. Batman Rebirth looks great. The Joker looks pretty good. I would hope for more Joker insignias, but there you go. And then they're also giving you all these cool Gotham City track pieces, and they also have a Batcave environment to race in. And then you also have all the other Batman paraphernalia you can upgrade and put on the walls and all that shit. So I really do, just for my own personal selfish reasons, I love this game, and I love the fact that you really can get into almost a Funko Pop thing where you have all of these crazy franchises coming together that don't really usually fit. This is a game that has the DeLorean from Back to the Future and Batman. I hope this gets content for a good long time, but I have no idea if this game is selling well enough to be sustainable at all. So I guess we will see. Copy paste it, Mr. K, talking about the analog. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about in a minute. Well, I want to tell you this. Hang on. Okay, I got to tell you. Maybe I'll save. Hang on. Let me just see what I got going on here. Hang on. That will save. Okay.
Whole lot of nothing.
Well, it's Bukaki Drive-By. What's up, man?
I just got off work. I'm just hanging out.
And this is compelling entertainment for the audience. Why, Bukaki?
I was gonna say some smart ass thing about Hot Wheels, but
do you not like the Hot Wheels video game there?
Nah, just when you compared it to like collecting Funko Pops, I was like, yeah, that sounds great, dude.
No, I'm talking about fuck you. I'm talking about the fact though that the Funko Pops can all live, like if you've played, which you probably haven't because you're a douchebag, because if you've played like the Funko Pops mobile game, it's a game that has Marty McFly and Batman and all of these characters coming together that would never actually be allowed to be in the same product. But because of the licensing deal with Funko, they can just mash them all together. That's what I'm talking about. It's not just like, oh, we can only do DC Comics. They probably can do DC, and they can do Spider-Man, and they can do, John Wick cars, and, but it's got to sell well enough to merit that shit.
You know what kind of annoys me is when these like video games and stuff get these licensing deals, and they don't do like the obvious thing that everybody would want.
Like what?
Like give you all the Batmobiles like from all the cartoons and all the movies and stuff.
They probably will. If it's successful, that's probably something they're saving for like another thing.
Why would you save that? That's the coolest thing. Who wants these stupid cars based off villains and stuff? They don't look that good.
Well, those are free. The ones that are based off villains are free. I agree, those don't look good. I think the Robin car looks great. I think the Batmobile looks pretty good. The Penguin car looks great. I don't think the Joker car looks great, but yeah, I am not sure why they wouldn't launch Batmobiles. But I could see them doing that. But maybe they're just like, we have to dole this shit out. You know how it is. It's like, look, in any one pack, there's something really good you want, and we save some of it for the next time, right? They don't give it all up front.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't even do that, though. They just don't give you what you want at all.
Well, then fuck them. Am I right, Bukaki?
Yeah. Go on. What else were you going to talk about?
Well, okay, so I was going to talk about... hang on, let me get to it. Oh, hang on, that's not the screen I want. I was going to talk about we're starting to see awards come out now, nominees for Game of the Year. But I think I'll save that for the next stream. I'll save this. I want to tell you a couple of things, though. I do want to talk about a couple of sponsors, and then I'll jump to our last story. But you got to listen to these fucking sponsors, because they pay real money to let you hear about their shit, and it's good fucking shit, okay? I first want to play you. I'm just going to play you some clips. This is a really short thing I'm going to play you. This is from Mavizzle the Second Show. He's got a show on YouTube. He's got a show on the Twitch.
Fantastic show he's got.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, he has a lot of
weird
like underground bands and stuff on there.
He's got a lot of weird... I'm going to show... Okay, so we're going to go to his... I've cut together like a quick compilation of just 3 of the weirdest fucking guests. I'm going to shut up. This is his Mavizzle the Second death metal interviews. He's got 3 guests back to back, about 20 seconds each. I want to show you this because it's batshit crazy, even to the point that the last guest that you're going to see, I have to have on this show because she's fucking out of her goddamn mind. Here you go. I'll shut up. Watch this for about 30 seconds and we'll talk about it.
Just the cover art. How the fuck do you commission a piece of art like that?
So I watched this little YouTube documentary about this Roman emperor named Hadrian. He would execute people with this thing called the brazen bull. He would literally you just get cooked. He died this fucking and so I watched this thing on YouTube about this saint getting killed like that with his family, and I guess and that's real apparently. That was some real shit. That wasn't anything made up.
Do you feel like the mask gives you an edge since you're not getting nails to the forehead and shit?
Yes and no. It deters people from my face sometimes. I've had my mask stapled to me a couple times. I've had my mask tacked to my head before.
Here today on the show, we have the clone of Vivi Vex. How does it feel knowing that, being one of the first clones, that can't be classified? How do you feel being a clone? Do you even know what clone means? Do you know that you're a copy of a different person? Is this the first time you're hearing this? I don't want to get you worked up.
Some of the crazy that he gets into. You can't see his guest. What are you talking about? What do you mean you can't see his guest?
Clones. That can't be classified.
You can't see that person?
Yeah, the video was kind of exploded on the screen, so you couldn't see the guest.
Can you see the guy in the mask?
I had my mask tacked to my
Yeah, I
head
could see a
before.
guy in the mask, but the last one that you were hyping up, the crazy girl, she was not really
On the show,
viewable.
Can you see her now?
I just see there's a delay. Oh, now I see it. Okay, yeah.
That, being one of the first clones, that can't be classified. How do you feel being a clone? Do you even know what clone means? Do you know that you're a copy of a different person? Is this the first time you're hearing this? I don't want to get you worked up.
I mean, right? This shit's crazy. So I'm a fan. I highly recommend checking it out. You can find his links down below. And then I want to tell you one more quick thing. We've talked about this a little bit before. The Leetest podcast, I'm going to go on these guys' show, I hope next week. This is a really cool show. This is a new podcast where friends play games about games. Video games, of course. These guys take classic game show games, trivia, debate, and more, and make them all about video games. My favorite one is this. It's called Movie Smash Up. You get the plot of a movie and a video game smashed together to come up with the title. Here's an example. A CIA operative living in Mexico City must battle multiple robot foes to reach their creator, an eccentric evil scientist who is holding a young girl for ransom. And you have to come up with, well, what the fuck is that called? Well, you got to take the video game Mega Man, and you got to take the game Man on Fire with Denzel, and it becomes Mega Man on Fire. That's the kind of shit these motherfuckers do over at the Leetest podcast. You can come up with your own questions for the games or your own games all together and send them over to the guys at the Leetest, and maybe they'll play your game on the show as well and give you a shout out or even have you on the show as well. It's the Leetest podcast. You can find the link below and on all major game podcast platforms. Leetist at the Leetest over on Twitter. I highly recommend you check out these good sirs and listen to me when I'm on their show very, very soon. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about today, we got Bukaki on. He'll give us some of his feedback on what he thinks about this, is we're starting to get into award season. I have major
favorite season.
I have major, massive issues with traditional video game awards or any kind of awards for creativity unless you're just asking an individual what they think. But today, the first award nominees dropped. This is for the Golden Joysticks. And I'm trying to see the way they decide who gets nominated. I'm trying to see where that comes from. Voting, let's see. Voting is now live, so anybody can vote, but these are the categories basically, okay? And they're going to give them out on November 23rd. But the ones that I took issue with, let me read you the Game of the Year awards, okay? Some of them make sense, a lot of them don't. Good night, Mr. Rob. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for being a member for 12 goddamn months. You know I appreciate it, sir. Very, very much, actually. Thank you, sir. Deathloop, Game of the Year. Okay. I mean, I can't have a comment on that because I didn't love it, but I know a lot of people did. Psychonauts 2, I haven't played it, but I hear it's phenomenal. That seems like it makes sense. Resident Evil Village, Game of the Year. I played that game. I finished that game. I really enjoyed that game. Game of the fucking year? That's ridiculous. That's horse shit. That would be like giving... Why? Because that would be like giving... like a really good, solid summer action movie an Oscar for Best Picture. It's like, it was good. It was fine. It was fun. There were some really weird pacing problems with it, but, it was good. It wasn't like groundbreaking like Resident Evil 4. It wasn't even like groundbreaking to some extent like RE7. They weren't saying it's RE4 VR, which is getting a lot of people talking. I almost bought a new Quest today to play that game. It was just kind of a solid vanilla entry into Resident Evil, and it was fine. Game of the Year? Ratchet and Clank. I don't think that should be Game of the Year. I loved Ratchet and Clank. Rift Apart. One of the best things I've played this year. One of the most attractive games I've played. But there was nothing special about it other than its execution. If you want to say best art, if you want to say most well-produced Game of the Year, I think that makes sense. I think if you want to say most fun Game of the Year, that makes sense. But the best Game of the Year going to something that's basically been doing the same formula over and over and over and again, and they're simply giving it an upgrade? I don't understand that.
Well, that's what I was thinking is, well, maybe they should make like a most innovative game of the year, you know, because a lot of people enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved it.
Just because it doesn't like break new ground, like does that really mean it can't win Game of the Year?
Well, I think at that point it becomes a question of how you're defining it. What is Game of the Year to you? Is it just a game that you thought was really good, or is it a game that pushes the medium forward and takes really big swings and hits or hits the ball more often than it misses? I mean, to me, that's what a Game of the Year or an award kind of thing does. Album of the Year or whatever is not just like the one that had the most hits. It's the one that really was innovative in the way that it presented its music. I mean, again, there's no right answer to it, but it's a question of, you know, what does Game of the Year mean? To me, if you're taking that definition, then I do not think Resident Evil or Ratchet and Clank fit. Wilder Myth, I own. I've played it a little bit. I've heard people raving about it. It's an indie game on Steam, but I still have yet to get to the point of that where I understand what the big deal is. I need to spend some more time. Hitman 3 is up there. I think that makes sense given how much people have raved. The Forgotten City is up there. Haven't played it. Comes to Game Pass next week, and I hear that's great. That kind of makes sense. It Takes Two, I think, makes sense to some extent. Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I don't think makes sense. And obviously,
what the fuck?
I don't know.
That's an old game.
Yeah, and then Metroid Dread is on there, which, you know, I of course don't think
absolutely should win.
Yeah, okay, and it might. I mean, my biggest issue, hello, Bo Bandy. My biggest issue with these, or a lot of these, is that, you know, when I was talking to Gene yesterday, who's a you know, fucking game reviewer and game journalist for the Washington Post, he's like, a lot of the reasons you get these typical lists that everybody has the same list is because these journalists don't have time to play everything. And I'm like, okay, but that's a problem, because there are so many games that aren't on this list that were really innovative and cool and different that were on Steam or were on itch or whatever that none of these journalists have probably even fucking seen and heard of. So I have a real problem with these awards. The more I talk about the industry, worked in the industry, Returnal is not on there. Think about that, Jorge. Returnal's that's ridiculous. It's just bullshit. It's a bullshit. It's a bullshit, you know, unless they say this is the definition, and the definition is, like Bukaki said, it's just the most fun game. I think that's fantastic. You know,
yeah, therein lies the problem. You know, everyone has their own definition of what Game of the Year is, and what I think is, like, if it's gonna mimic, the nomination list is gonna mimic like the best-selling list, besides, you know, the sports games, like, why even bother? Because
right.
you're gonna know what it is every year.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the Oscars exist more to market than anything else. They're not really. They say they're there to celebrate film, but at least they kind of masquerade it a little better. Whereas most times you'll get a weird not low budget always, but sort of like doesn't make tons of money at the box office winning, because they are saying, look, we want to vote for something that really shows off how special the medium is. And it's just kind of weird that we don't really see that in video games, at least in most of these. But yeah, and then, you know, some fucking Delta Gamer, Bacon is in the Discord. Motherfucker won't pay to join, won't pay to be on the super chat. Sure, I'll read it though, because, you know, you've given us enough entertainment, you son of a bitch. He says, how can Jaffe comment on the Game of the Year if he majority of the time don't finish them? his opinion is already flawed, not acceptable. Well, you know, let's put it this way. I mean, seriously, let's put it this way. It's unintentionally a good question, Bacon, because who would you know, whose view should you be taking on something like nominating and voting for Game of the Year, right? Should you know, most of these journalists, let's say 80% of these journalists finish these games. but they only play 30% of what I play. Would you rather have somebody saying, yeah, I don't finish most of these, but I play more than a couple of hours of all of these, and I have a much better view of what came out this year, whereas these guys clearly only played the big things that they reviewed. Yeah, they finished them, but their pool was so tiny. I think the question becomes what are you going to value more if you have to choose, which you kind of do.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of a crapshoot, because, like, you know, people are going to say, like, oh, well, you know, there's this really cool part of the game later on that you're not going to get to if you don't keep playing
I'm
it.
sure that's right, but, you know, fuck it. If the game can't be good enough to encourage more people to get to it, then isn't that a problem already? I mean, I know it's subjective. Maybe for me, I didn't get there, but you did.
Yeah, it is subjective, but, like, I don't know, I agree with you, because I know you said before, like, hey, if I can't get, like, the gist of the game down in, like, an hour, it's, you know, it's kind of a bad game.
Yeah.
But there are some good games that, you know, they have, like, their little set pieces and stuff like that with cool sections later on that you would miss if you were just like, all right, I played this for a few hours and I've had enough.
Right. No, I could absolutely see that. Spaz, you've jumped back in. Did you have an opinion on this?
Well, I wanted to say that the amazing Poopy Parker is
Isn't-
PC of the year.
Brilliant fucking game. Brilliant fucking game.
I did that as soon as I saw you made that video on it. It took me a while to figure out what game that was called, though.
Did you know, though, I didn't know until after I stopped playing it that you can actually use the WASD keys to swing. I thought you could only get momentum with the poop coming in and out of his butthole. But you can actually swing.
Because it didn't tell you.
Yeah, I know. Fucking game. I should have quit it. I didn't finish it, though. Bad Boy Live.
It's pretty short anyway.
Yeah. Bad Boy says, was Teardown in last year's awards. Not sure if it came out too late. It wasn't considered. Oh, there's no doubt. I do think it was a 2020 game, but the fact that you didn't see it in awards last year or this year is a fucking, again, it's just a fucking indicator that, you know, these things are a fucking sham, man. I mean, I have been on these nominating committees, fellas. I've been on the nominating committees for DICE. I've been on the nominating committees for a couple other big awards. I'm not being hyperbolic when I tell you that we would have arguments over what the awards mean, and people were nominating things for entirely different reasons in the same category that other people were nominating things. It is all utterly horseshit. The best thing I think you can do is find a reviewer that you like or find a gamer you like if you care about this stuff and go, I want to hear what that guy's, like, I would be interested in Spazbo's top 10 game, because Spazbo, you play almost everything. You play almost everything to completion. I'm curious what...
I play almost everything, but almost everything that I do play, I play to completion.
But you play a lot, and you're always playing. So, I mean, your game of the year would be interesting. Even these individual journalists, I would be interested in Gene Park's game of the year, or his top 5 or whatever. But when you start voting, you get into all of this area of gray, and it just, I mean, you know, I know it's fun, and I know it's a competition, it's fun television, blah, 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 and that's fine. But I think we have to be careful, in my opinion, not to take this shit serious. Caveman says it shouldn't be journalists, but game devs that vote. Well, because playing for work and fun are different things. I mean, I think that's everything. I think if you play a game as a developer, you see different things than if you play it as a journalist than if you play it as a fan, right? So
I never liked that argument, because it's like, you know, you don't have to be a chef to know if something tastes good. And you don't have to be a game dev to know if a game is fun to you.
Right. No, I mean, I think, but I do think having an award ceremony that says, like, the Game Developers Awards are just that. And it's like, okay, the only people who are voting in here are the people who make games. So, for example, God of War won all the awards for the most part from the DICE Awards. And we were nominated for all the awards for Game Developer Awards. We didn't win a single one. All of the awards we won went to Shadow of the Colossus from the Game Developer Awards. So I do think that's interesting that you are seeing different results based on who's doing the voting, what type of job those people have. But But anyway, okay. Well,
Yeah,
there.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I would say that comparing God of War to Shadow of the Colossus would be kind of like how you said if Resident Evil won an award, it would be like some action movie winning an Oscar.
Yeah, I think that's
Kind of like comparing it to that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Shadow of the Colossus was super arty-farty.
To be fair, when God of War came out, it wasn't looked at in the way it's looked at now. It was looked at like, people did write about the story and the emotion and all this shit. It's only in retrospect people say, "Oh, that was a shit game. I'm so fucking glad that Kratos is mature." Yeah, I'm glad he's
by a misogynist.
Well, of course he's mature because he's going to PC. That's where the fucking grown-ups play. Am I right, boys? All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna disconnect the voice chat.
Something.
Yeah.
I looked at I voted for the games. I went to the website and voted. But sadly, like most of the games on those lists, like I either never heard of or I just have no intention of even playing.
Right. Well, listen, I will be approaching you for your top 5 games of the year for our end of the year special. So hopefully you won't mind providing us with those.
Oh yeah, I hope I can come up with 5.
Me too. Well, even if you come up with 1, we just want to know what your ultimate game is. But don't say it yet. You got to save that shit, baby. It's called Slow Burn.
It's Metroid Dread because it's the best game ever made.
All right, see you guys. Bye, you guys.
See
you, man. All right. Fellas, we did it. That is the latest we have ever done at Gabbin' and Games. It is 2 o'clock, almost 2 a.m. here in San Diego. Here's what we're going to do. I will go to the chat. I will do text chat, voice, whatever it's called. We'll just chat for 5-10 minutes if there's anything you guys want to talk about that was not specific to the show. And then I'm going to basically ride off into the sunset. And that's all I got. So... Bad Boy says, why don't they just score per category for every game and let it calculate out to see what's game of the year? Fun, graphic, sound. The problem with that, though, is you're still struggling to define what game of the year means, right? So if you have a game, for example, if you have a game that's incredibly fun, like Dusk, I'm not blowing you off. I need to see the analog thing. Copy and paste it again. So if you have a game like Dusk, which is fundamentally a not great looking video game intentionally and also just by necessity of budget and scale and scope, but it was one of the most fun games of that year, and you put that up against something and you say, okay, that gets a fun factor of 10. But a game like The Ascent might get a fun factor of 7. But the graphics are insane. That gets a 10. The audio is insane. That gets a 10. It seems weird that would win over Dusk, because it hits those numbers, right? I mean, I think if you wanted to have a most fun game of the year or I think you could have maybe better defined categories. Like even, we do it half joking. The awards aren't a joke, but the name is, it's not really a joke, but I have these things called the Yoshidas I started giving out last year, and I'll do it again this year, that are very specific design awards. So I think, speaking of like, what was the game? Teardown. Teardown got, again, I wow, I got a Yoshida, who gives a shit? But I gave that game an award for design. I forget the category, because the fact that some of these awards don't even have design awards, let alone design awards that are specific to like most innovative design. I mean, that design in Teardown is fucking amazing. Right, Caveman says, why not break it down further and give awards to best combat mechanics and best art direction? Well, art direction they already give, but I agree, that's what I was doing. I was breaking down game design. The Yoshidas are all game design. So it's like 10 or 15 categories that are specifically about play mechanics and, most interesting mechanics, most, interesting storytelling through gameplay, things like that you don't really see in a lot of these fucking shows. Okay, I'm looking for it, Mr. K. Okay, analog horror is creepy videos or series on YouTube that often look like retro found VHS, usually under 10 minutes, often ambiguous storylines. Watching a few on stream might be cool. So my son has been telling me, is it correct, or maybe this isn't what you're talking about? I mean, I know there's the ones like the best shootable walls. Fuck you. I know there's the one like the Russian alien thing they have in the. It's not called CPS, but it's some acronym. I'm assuming you're talking about that shit, right? But and I've seen some of that. My son has been going on about the Walden files. I think that's what you call it. And he's like, dude, you need to do a stream where you're high and just watching the Walden files with the chat, because it's fucking batshit crazy. But I don't know if the Walden files fits in or not. But yeah, look, Mr. K, if you want to send me on Discord, DM me a list of like the best 3 or 4 that might be a good Halloween theme to stream and get high to. I will absolutely take that under very, very serious consideration. Okay, Walden files. I'll do Walden files then. Yeah, because my kid's just like, dude, it's so fucking crazy. Did you read about Blizzard removing the NPC, says Mutimo, in World of Warcraft that was an homage to the current lead singer of Cannibal Corpse because of past comments? I did not. Let us find out briefly. I want to see what those are. Isn't Cannibal Corpse the one that has that horrible album cover with like a suicide victim on the fucking cover? World of Warcraft Cannibal Corpse. Okay, let's see. Corpse Grinder. Let's see. Blizzard renamed a quest-giving character after homophobic statements by the musician it was based on emerged. Character initially known as Gorge the Corpse Grinder was based on Cannibal Corpse vocalist George Corpse Grinder Fisher. Encountered blah blah blah. However, as spotted by Metal Hammer, the character has been rebranded Annihilator Greklor after homophobic statements from Fisher resurfaced. In a 2007 interview, he referred to the alliance as the Homo Alliance and called the Horde's rival faction fucking emo cocksuckers. I mean, are you? Am I thinking of Mayhem? Okay, yeah. I mean, if you're asking for my thoughts, look. I mean, I certainly don't like language like that. I think it's disrespectful, it's hurtful, it's harmful, it's rude. And I certainly support a private business's right to say, we don't want to be in business with someone in any way that shows that we support those ideas. So I don't have a problem with it. But I certainly don't, I think you have to be, I think you still have to be careful, about, I don't know. I'm the only reason I'm struggling with it is it's like, of course I don't agree with what he said. I think it's awful. But I don't believe in canceling, although that's not really canceling. That's a company going, look, we don't want to be in business with you. You're bad for business. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fair. But like even the Dave Chappelle thing, I finally watched the Chappelle special, and I want to get to that chat. I'll get to Chappelle in a second. It's a bit of a can of worms, but I want to get. Not Bad Boy. It was somebody was asking about Saints Row, and I've seen that question a few times. I want to make sure I get that. Where did the Saints Row question go? Hang on. 1 second. Here we go. Vitaphone. What's up with the new Saints Row videos having almost no NPCs walking on the streets? Looks like a ghost town. If the game comes in a few months, is that likely to be different at launch? Or are they trying to hide limitations, meaning they can crank up density? I haven't seen... I know there was a new video today coming out about Saints Row. I haven't watched it. That is unusual if the game is coming out. Isn't it like a February release? But yeah, I mean, I don't have any data on that. But I would say that is weird. That if the game is coming out in a couple of months and they're showing footage, I mean, that game should be close to fucking gold at this point if it's coming out in February. Certainly close to at least submit the code for gold in the next month or so. So that is weird. Maybe it's just old footage. the developer, who's the developer? Is it still Volition? I mean, I can't imagine, they're not going to have a lot of pedestrians on the streets, but I don't know. That is weird. Whether it's weird because it's just a weird thing that PR would put out, such old footage, or it's weird like it suggests there might be a problem. Neither one of those is inspiring, but I haven't really been following it. David says, Bad Boy, why do you think developers still aren't implementing physics in gameplay? They are, meaning being able to shoot a statue that falls onto a truck that blows up and kills an enemy. They are doing that in a lot of games, but there are certain games, like which games are you talking about? Certainly games like Teardown, certainly games that are more sandboxy do that. But if you're saying like, why can't I do that in an Uncharted game? I mean, my guess would be that they probably they probably let you do those things where you can do them, and if you can't do them, then they say we're not going to even allow you to even shoot a statue that falls down because we don't have that. I mean, a lot of those games are so much more handcrafted and scripted that may be where but I have seen a bunch of games that do let you play with the physics. So, so I'm not sure. If you have an example, let me know. But the Chappelle thing, I finally watched the whole thing the other day. Look, as you guys probably know, I mean, look, I have LGBT folks all up and down my family. I have a trans son. I have a gay brother. I have a couple of gay cousins. And, I will whatever that community needs for me to be a supporter and an ally and a defender of their right to live their life the way they want to live their life is, where do I sign up? I'm there, but I don't, first off, look, I don't think Netflix should take this. I would need to talk to some trans folks. I haven't talked to my son about it, but I would need to talk to some trans folks and go, or read some articles and go, what am I missing about this? It's clear Chappelle is not the world's best ally, although I think if you do watch the special, it's clear also that he's a guy that is struggling with where he comes down on this. He has a very impactful story at the end about one of his friends who is trans who tragically killed themselves because of bullying and things like that, and he clearly thought the world of this person. It seems clear that he makes jokes, but he's not going out and, supporting hate crimes or bullying or anything like that. But at the same time, there's been enough people in the LGBT community that have said, this is a problem, and we think Netflix, I think they just today or next week are doing a walkout of Netflix. This is enough of a problem that we really think it shouldn't be on the air. When I watched it as a non-LGBT person, I was just like going, okay, I could see how it could be offensive if you're offended, but I didn't feel that it was like he has a recurring joke in there about space Jews, where he's kind of basically harping on Israel and harping on a number, and I'm not Jewish, but I was raised Jewish. A lot of people in my family are Jewish. I still, now again, it's different. I can say, well, I didn't have a problem with it, but again, Jews are persecuted. Anti-Semitism is growing, but it's not like they're globally shunned in the same way LGBT folks are. So I don't think it's equatable. But I guess my point is that I would need to hear from trans people to go, what am I missing? Because this just sounds like a guy who's making some off-color jokes, who doesn't totally agree with everything. I don't agree with everything that Chappelle said. I think he's wrong when he says gender is fact. He's not correct on that. Or if he is correct, he's not being specific enough in his definition to. I think I know what he's trying to say, but he's not saying it properly, right? But I would need to know more about what their problem is. But if it is just the fact that, he's being given a platform to express his views, which I don't think are hateful. They might not be as well developed, as someone who's, you know, thought about this stuff in a different way, but I don't get it. But just because I don't get it, I'm not the guy who needs to get it. That's why I defer to the community of the people who are put upon and oppressed. And it's like, hey, what am I missing? You know, and I don't know if any of you guys watching this have read what the big problem is with what he said. But I talked to somebody the other day. I talked to a friend, and I was asking her, I said, oh, have you seen the Chappelle show? She's like, oh, that guy's horrible, and he does all this anti-trans stuff. And I said, well, I actually have watched it. Have you seen it? And she says, no. And I'm like, well, maybe you should watch it first. It kind of reminds me of the Cuties thing on Netflix. And I'm glad they didn't take Cuties off, because I saw Cuties. I did a review for that movie. And Cuties is actually an important film. Cuties is an important film about the value of childhood and good parenting and social media fucking up our kids. It is not what people think it is. But people were going to the mat a year and a half ago saying that thing needs to go and it's pedophilia and all this shit. And I'm like, you haven't even watched the fucking thing. So, you know, I don't know if the people complaining have actually seen it, or if they have, my mind is open. But again, my mind doesn't need to be open. In any group that is bullied and picked on for being who they are, you know, not to sound like a dork, but, you know, they have my axe and my sword as whatever the fucking Lord of the Rings nerds say, because that's bullshit. People shouldn't get bullied for being who they are. You are the guy who needs to get it, says Mr. K. We matter too. If every piece of art has to be run past every group that might be affected by it, we'd be stuck. You are the guy who needs to get it. Well, what I'm saying is I don't need to. For example, I don't. It's like being the white guy who says, what are you offended by the N-word for, black person? It's just a word. Well, you know, my perspective on it is, and I don't feel that way, of course, but my perspective on it is one that doesn't allow me to really know what it means to be affected by that word. So it's not that when I say I don't need to get it, if a trans person says, oh, here's the problem I have with the Chappelle show, and it's based on fact, and they can cite, it's like, oh, well, you know, when he said this thing or that thing or that thing, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. Okay. But I'm not in a position to know what is genuinely offensive to a group that I'm not part of. And that's all. This country is just dumb, says Bukaki. Well, that's true. Especially when it comes to deep issues like this. Why take time to watch a special or movie when I can just spout my opinion? Dude, the online shit, man. The online shit is, I mean, every day I get closer and closer to thinking, every day I get closer and closer to thinking the internet really should not be anonymous, or there should be fucking perks if you basically register, you know, because the fact of the matter is yeah, it's freedom. Great. But, you know, unless you're playing such a long game and you say, look, I know social media, I know the internet is tearing people apart, but this is technology and we have to learn to evolve out of this. If you're thinking of it that way, okay, I can understand. But other than that, to look at technology and what social media has done to our culture, it has just made people so fucking mean. And I mean, a great example is this guy, Gene Park, that I never knew. He followed me. I only followed him yesterday. A reporter from Washington Times, games reporter. And he told me when he watched my Metroid video, at first he got heated. He was like, you know, he didn't say this, but he was implying that he was like this fucking asshole. Well, whatever the reason, when he reached out to me and we met face-to-face or digitally face-to-face, I really like this guy. I don't know what he felt about me, but he was smart. He was educated. He was able to explain to me what I didn't get about Metroid. He was not a jerk. I mean, because he wasn't hidden behind some cloak of like, you know, some fake bullshit name like XXGamer72 Switch Rules ×3 or Ricardo Estevez. He actually puts his real fucking name up there. So Mr. K says, what is being removed, Mr. K? Let me put in this chat where it's live chat. That might help more. People literally get their news from Facebook posts. Yeah, it's terrible. Children shouldn't be on the internet, says Mutant Mo. I don't know if I agree with that. I think we would be a better society unless we are consciously saying, no, we have to burn it all down and almost go to fucking Pussy Slayer 69420. We have to burn it all down in order to build up a society that can, deal with social media. Unless that is like a long game thing that we're consciously doing, I think we just need some fucking restrictions, man. I mean, I hate to say it because I'm all about freedom, but there's a point where it's the equivalent, in my opinion, of like opening a valve of poison gas and letting it out into society and going, yes, but that's my First Amendment right. It's like, yes, it is, but the Constitution is also written to be malleable and changeable. And this is, I don't imagine anybody looks at this and says, hey, I want to support this. Vita says social media and the magic rectangle have basically given steroids to our most primal aspects. Yes, it's true. It's tragic. It's true. I've been thinking the same thing for years, says Bad Boy. You should need to register your driver's license or social security with your online presence. I say that because people get away with murder. People are just such assholes. And that's, but you know what's even more interesting to me about this is that ultimately that's a Band-Aid to the bigger problem, isn't it? Because you could sit there and you could say, let's come up with a way to make the internet a nicer place. But that still doesn't solve the real problem, which is, why are we so mean to begin with, right? I mean, and I know I'm a broken record on this about capitalism and stuff, but I think a lot of it is we live in a country where over half the people are a paycheck away, one paycheck away from being on the street. Think about that. One paycheck away, over half of Americans. Of course we're mad and afraid and scared. And of course we lash out. I mean, you can put all these restrictions on the internet, and I think that needs to happen. But underneath that, man, is a society that is really anxious and scared. And I think if we don't deal with that, it'll just come up in a different fucking way. Mike Who, yo so-and-so. Here's a smoke of the pipe, baby. Welcome to the Diet. We've been here before, but good to see you again, sir. Welcome back to the Diet Soda Soldiers. Always good to have you here, Mike Who. Mike TV, Mike Who. Yes, indeed. But yes, but yes, thank you, Mike Who. There's some pot. Welcome back to the fuckery. I appreciate it. I was going to say to you something, because you said, oh, I'm so excited for God of War PC, says Mike Who. Can't wait for the modding community. Okay, is the mod community going to be allowed to fuck with God of War PC? I thought the publisher had to open those valves, because I don't think there's been mods for Days Gone or Horizon, have there? But that would be awesome. Oh my God, Kratos without the beard? Oh, and then people changing out Atreus for just a total fucking like a Oompa Loompa or something from Charlie and Chocolate Factory. Ricardo, Ricardo's talking about the Constitution being freedom from an old document. The document, though, is designed to be malleable. It's designed to be changed. The problem with the Constitution, in my opinion, and my brother and I get in fights over this all the time, is that we are not evolved enough to handle the United States Constitution, because our greed inevitably gets in the way, and that allows for politicians to be bought, for lobbyists, for all kinds of things that really gum up the works of the Constitution. It's designed to be changeable, but good luck getting anybody to change it. We literally can't get the Democrats to push back against the filibuster. I think it was today that the Voting Rights Act, or the Voting Rights change that would get rid of gerrymandering. Who's against gerrymandering? Gerrymandering that would make voting a national holiday. These are things that most Americans want, but the Republicans don't want it. Well, all the Democrats need to do is say, fuck it, we're going to basically make the filibuster, it's got to be 50 to overturn it, not 60 to allow something to be passed in the Senate, and they won't do it. They're kind of threatening they might do it, but I mean, we can't even do that. So good luck getting a fucking amendment passed that actually means anything, because everybody's greedy. Darth Nugget does not like the woke bullshit. He says, society has become so soft and the woke bullshit is going to get Trump reelected. I don't understand how people can't see that. I mean, look, man, I don't think society has become so soft. I think what you're seeing actually, here's what I think you're actually seeing. I think you are seeing people who are actually going, you know what? Hang on, I gotta sneeze. We were talking last night, me and my ex and my kids were having dinner together, and we were talking about, you know, a lot of people on YouTube who hear songs from the 80s, and their kids or teenagers or 20-somethings go, oh, music was so great, I'd like to go back to the 80s. And my son is like, well, yeah, as long as you're like a straight white male who's cisgendered, sure, the 80s were great, or the 50s were great, right? But I think what you're seeing, I don't think it's softness. I think what you're seeing is you have a lot of people now, because of the internet, because they've been able to find their tribe anywhere in the world. And they're saying, look, whether you're trans or LGBT or you're fighting for Palestinian rights or Israeli rights or whatever it is that's the bee in your bonnet, you're going, I'm not going to take this shit anymore. What you're saying is fucking offensive as shit. And it's harmful and it's hurtful. And you don't get to do that and not experience any pushback from the people that you're harming. I don't think that's soft. I think that's brave, and I think that's about fucking time. But that said, though, I know what you're saying, and I agree. The left is eating itself. If you say one thing they deem problematic, they call you a Nazi. Yeah, the left, the hardcore left are just as dumb and dogmatic as the hardcore right. They're all a bunch of fucking morons. They're a bunch of fucking morons. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely fucking true. On the left and the right, there's no doubt. Yeah, I mean, the intolerance on both sides is unacceptable, Ricardo. Bukaki says you're seeing people lose their livelihoods over 10-year-old tweets. Society has definitely gone soft. I think that's wrong. I think that is wrong. I don't think that's soft. I think if a company again, I agree with you about the 10-year-old tweets, but if a company says, fuck you, Bukaki, if a company says, we're going to let this guy go because there was a tweet he did 6 years ago or she did 6 years ago that is going to hurt our business, what that means is their business is vulnerable to a market that has risen up and said, you know what, you can fucking put Dave Chappelle on your channel, Netflix, and I personally hope they keep him on unless I hear, you know, I haven't heard their side for it yet. But you're going to lose a lot of customers. Do with that what you will. And that's just capitalism. I mean, that's just fucking capitalism working its magic or tragic. You know, what did I say? You know, I think, you know, because what would you have these people do? Would you have, you know, if somebody came at me and insulted trans people and I have a trans son and I would fight a million wars for my son. I adore that little fuck. He's, with him and my daughter, the apples in my fucking eye. Adore those little fuckers. God, they're just, I love having kids. I love being their dad, okay? Well, I'm going to fight, okay? That doesn't, trust me, I haven't gone soft if somebody says something against the trans community and that hurts my son or my son's friends or my son's ability to get ahead in the world. I'm going to fight like a goddamn junkyard dog. That's not soft. That's go fuck yourself. I'm not going to allow you, if I have the power, to hurt people that I care about. I think that's the opposite of soft. But I will agree with you that the radical edges of left and right need to go fuck themselves because they've become exactly the thing they say they hate. Bernie, really quick. Bernie, really. No, my son is. I have a trans son, Mr. K. Bernie is not a good politician. I loved Bernie. I voted for Bernie in the primaries, and I voted for Warren in the primaries. But I tell my kids this. They're like, what do you mean Bernie was great? I'm like, Bernie was great. I don't know if he would have made a good president or not, but I was willing to roll the dice on the guy. But he's a bad politician because the game that was provided to him was a game he didn't play well. And I don't like the game that was provided to him. I don't like that there are things you have to do to get elected that he wasn't capable of doing or capable of doing at the level that Biden was. But that's the game. And frankly, if you're going to be the president of the United States, you know, it's the hardcorest of the NFL and the fucking MMA and the bare knuckle fighting all mixed together. No one's going to come to you and play nice. They're gonna put these rules out, and you're going to have to know how to navigate. You're going to have to know how to deal with the politics and the backstabbing and all that shit. And so, as much as I like Bernie and would have liked to have seen him and Warren get in there, the guy couldn't play the game. And that's, again, I'm not saying that like he's weak. I'm just saying that like that's part of the job, unfortunately. And that's a tragedy. But, you know, if you want to fix it, you got to get in there to fix it. There were 2 million primary votes in California that magically disappeared in 2016. A whole class action was filed. You're talking about the Bernie versus Hillary. And there is some evidence that Donna Brazil and who's the other woman, Schultz something, that there was some crazy shit going on that election. I think that's true. I think in the new one though, he couldn't play the game. And like I said, the guy got my vote. Warren got my vote too. What does a trans son mean? Yes, born as a girl physically, but transition to a boy. That's right. And the correct term is transgender, or in what that, yes, the correct term is transgender is the gender they identify with. So my son Calvin is a boy, and he's a trans boy. What is Bukkake saying? I don't know. Whenever people agree with Bukkake, I get worried. It's going to start a fucking war. All right, I don't fucking know. All right, fellas, that's it. It's 2 a.m. What if I like these late night streams? We should do these more often. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's right, Maiku. There you go, buddy. Yeah, no. I mean, they I don't know if he would have won, but they fucked him. They fucked him really bad, and I hate that shit, man. I you know, the Democrats are. I vote Democratic most often, but the fact that they're just toothless. I mean, think about that for a moment. This is the second time. First was with Obama. Now it's with Biden. That the Democrats had the Senate, the House, and the presidency. And they still can't get shit done because they won't play fucking hardball. I understand it. Manchin and Cinema, I get it. They have some cards they're holding. But they're going to need the DNC. They're going to need the support of the Democratic Party for their re-elections. And so there's a point where the president should just come down and say, look, I'm in charge of the DNC. So here's the deal. He's not the head of the DNC, but they take their orders from him. If you want any money or any support from anyone in the Democratic Party for your re-election campaign, then you will get behind some of these fucking votes. I don't get it. Yeah. So I got excited for Bernie the first time since Bukkake. When they screwed him over, I couldn't get as passionate when he tried again because I thought they'll just screw him again. Well, again, I mean, that is the job. I know that's shitty. And I know it's disappointing, like to my kids and to me as well. But the fact that the best person doesn't get the job, but the person who plays the game better gets the job is a real problem. Is a real fucking problem. But, you know, I mean, again, Ricardo says, in hearing celebs being considered as presidents, are you guys nuts? Yeah, but our education system is pretty shitty. People don't know civics. People don't. You ask your average American, talk to me about the difference between the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They wouldn't know. Talk to me about the what is it? What are they trying to do? What would happen if they changed the filibuster rule? They wouldn't even know what the filibuster is. It's a real problem. I used to watch House of Cards. I got bored of it, but you got to get rid of it. Well, you can't get rid of it, Ricardo. Ricardo says you got to get rid of the two-side system. You don't get rid of it. You get rid of it by voting for different things. But again, that would require a level of engagement that our population in America has not been brought up to care about. Right? I mean, and the Democrats are really fucking themselves for 2022 because, Democrats were mobilized because Trump was a fucking nightmare to a lot of us. But now it's like we did it. We showed up. We waited in line. We put up with the bullshit laws that had been passed by Republicans to keep Democrats from voting. We did all of it. Now it's your turn. Make some fucking changes. Fucking Kamala Harris did a tweet the other day talking about it was actually Biden, but she did one too. But Biden was like, the $3 that you pay for your cup of coffee is more than most than the top 50% of corporations paid in taxes last year. This has to change. It's like, motherfucker, don't tell me we put your dumb ass in office so you could fucking get it changed. You're just fucking shouting slogans into Twitter at this point. Go fucking do it. Get Manchin and Sinema in line, get them to vote, change the filibuster, and then we'll fucking change it. But fucking tell me it has to change, motherfucker. I did my job. We got you elected. Now you fucking do yours, you fucking moron. I sure hope they have someone better than Kamala in 2024. Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. Do we think Biden was a plant knowing he wasn't in the best mental condition so someone else... I mean, there's no evidence of that. I mean, I don't fucking know. I mean, hell, the fact that news came out that towards the end of Trump's presidency, he was literally having his generals go, we may have to step in here because he's talking about starting a war with China so he can stay elected. Come on, man. Mr. K says, Jaffe, stop. That's not what the Republican motions were. It had nothing to do with keeping ordinary legal Democrats from voting. You don't seriously believe this shit. Sure, I absolutely do, and I'll tell you why, because I can point to specific aspects, right? You have in okay, so just take today, okay? The Republicans would not even allow a vote to let people debate and discuss changing the voter laws that the Republicans had passed, right? Those included laws that said we're going to get rid of gerrymandering by way of political people having control over it, and we're going to make voting in America a national holiday, which means you don't have to go to work on that day, which means it's going to be a lot easier for people to vote. So, Mr. K, when people vote, Democrats win. The Republicans have historically done things to make it more difficult for people to vote. There's nothing to believe on that. That's fact. I mean, I can point you to the examples. So why then, if what you're saying is right, can we not even get a discussion in the United States Senate about maybe we need to change some of these rules that were passed? I mean, come on. Look, let's be clear. I'm not one of these conspiracy guys. I think it's absolutely crazy. Oh, shit. Delta Gamer's in here. I think it's absolutely crazy that
can you hear me?
Left and the right believes in this conspiracy shit. But there are some things that are true. Oh, Jesus. What's up, Bacon?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can fucking hear you, pal. How's it going?
All right, man. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm tired, but I'm good. What's going on? What do you want to talk about?
All right, man. I wanted to ask you a question.
Oh, God. Here we go. Here we go. Shoot.
All right. First of all, I mentioned how you don't finish majority of the games you play.
I talked about that.
You came back and said that, well, who will you prefer? A person who plays a bunch of games but don't finish them but plays a bunch of them, or a reviewer who only plays like a cater amount of games and only console games, but they finish the games. And I feel like I still want the reviewer who finished the games, because they get to tell you about all the experience they have with the game. Because some games start out slow and they tell you, oh, keep playing, it get better. But if you stopped at the game in like 2 hours, for instance, like with Metroid, then you just would have said the game was most likely bad and you just never would have kept playing. So I just want to know your thought.
Well, I mean, look, I think the perfect answer is someone who plays a huge number of games and finishes them all. But I think, and also votes in categories that are very clear and very well defined. But we don't have those things, right? And so for me, what I think is the frequency of playing a game that if you haven't experienced its greatness or what makes it special in the first couple of hours, the frequency of ultimately it's not going to be that great or worth talking about, I think that's a higher percentage chance than a game after 2 or 3 hours is crap, but it gets game of the year level at hour 10. So given that that's the rarity, I would rather err on the side of somebody who plays a lot more games. But I mean, it's subjective. There's no right answer. That's why I ask you, what would you prefer?
Oh, okay. All right, I got another question before I go.
Hey, hang on. We just got a new sub, Rodrigo de la Fuente. Thank you so much, buddy, for subbing to the YouTube channel. I appreciate it, buddy. All right, what is it? Go.
All right, this is the last question. Do you believe men should be able to breastfeed their babies? Like, I've seen some people saying, men have nipples, men can produce milk, they should be able to breastfeed their babies. Sure. Some people say, dude, it's just honestly disgusting. That's child abuse. No, men should not be able to breastfeed their babies. So okay. I was just wondering, what's your opinion?
Well, okay. So my understanding is I did actually hear that men are capable of pushing milk out of their nipples. I think. I mean, let me Google it real quick. I want to make sure I'm not talking crazy. But there's some point where I remember hearing about this. Can men make milk nipples? I don't know what's going to come up. Okay, human male breastfeeding is possible, but production of the hormone prolactin is necessary to induce lactation. So male lactation does not occur under normal conditions. Spontaneous production of milk not associated with childbirth, known as galactorrhea, can occur in males and females. So I guess I wouldn't have a problem. Look, if somebody were to say this child doesn't have a mother, or she can't produce milk, but if the father takes this pill, he can, and the child is going to be healthier with breast milk from the parents, what do I care? What's abusive about it?
Okay, I was just wondering what's your opinion on it.
I never thought about it in my life until you brought it up to me. But
okay.
I mean, I don't. If Mr. K says it's what's child abuse about it? Why is it child abuse for the mother to breastfeed the child but not the father if the father is capable of doing it? I don't know if that's child abuse. But again, I've never thought about this. Let's put it this way. If somebody came to me and said, when I had my kids, and they said, you have to breastfeed your kids or your kids have a very high percentage chance of being sick, I'd breastfeed all goddamn day. All goddamn day. And any parent would. Because that's taking care of your fucking children.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you for answering, Jeffy.
All right, man. Talk to you soon, bud.
All right.
There goes Dell into the evening. Mike, who says, I was almost denied voting during the primary because I had to argue with the elections officials for 30 minutes because they were told that signatures need to be 100% matches to the one on your ID. Right. Look, there is absolutely no doubt that voting needs to be secure. But voting, for the most part, voter fraud is incredibly rare in America. Voter fraud is so rare in America that even Donald Trump had his head of the group that he put in position to prove that there was voter fraud in the 2016 election. The police said, we don't have any evidence of voter fraud. I'll show you if you don't believe me. I'm not pulling it out of my butthole. Trump voter fraud. What do they call those things when they form a group? Not a group, like a. I'm just going to say group, no evidence. Let's see what comes up. Now, I'll put this on the screen for you to see. Let me see if I can find it. Come on now, my internet got all slow. What the fuck? Okay, here we go. Okay, report. This was 2018. I'll show you this on the committee. There you go, Mr. K. Thank you. All right, so this is up on the screen real quick. Okay. This is the AP. I'll go to anywhere you want me to look if you don't trust the AP, but they're pretty much looked at as the right in the middle. But let me, oh, Jesus Christ, come on now. Okay. Trump Commission did not find widespread voter fraud is the headline. The now disbanded Voter Integrity Commission launched by the Trump administration uncovered, why is my internet so gosh darn cockadoodie slow? What is the deal? Hang on. Let me just kill that. Let me do this. Does Twitter work? Wow. Okay, let me just open a new window then. Let me kill this. No, keep that open, but put it over here. Try this. Okay, here we go. The myth of, I want to find the one. GOP review finds no proof of Arizona. Despite his victory, no credible evidence of voter fraud. Courts have dismissed multiple lawsuits of alleged fraud. But I want to find the Trump disbanded. Okay, Trump Commission did not find widespread. The now disbanded Voting Integrity Commission launched by the Trump administration uncovered no evidence to support claims of widespread voter fraud, according to an analyst of administration documents released Friday. In a letter to VP Mike Pence and Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who are both Republicans and led the commission, Maine Secretary of State Matthew Dunlap said the documents show there was a preordained outcome and drafts of a commission report included a section on evidence of voter fraud that was glaringly empty. It's calling into the darkness looking for voter fraud, says Dunlap, a Democrat. There's no evidence of it anywhere. So, I mean, I'm not saying just because it's in the news it's true, but I mean, how many of these fucking things do I need to point you to? Like, where are you seeing there's this widespread voter fraud? Do I think we need to make sure our elections are safe? Sure. Do I think people need some kind of identification? Yes. Do I think that identification needs to be incredibly easy and free to get? Yes. Because ultimately not everybody has the ability to get to the fact that you can't do it online, the fact that you have to take time off work to go get a voter ID, the fact that you have to wait in line for hours at the DMV. Look, I don't have a problem with that. I have some money in the bank. You have some money in the bank. But if you don't have anything, your job's not, I mean, it's cruel is what it is. If you really want people to vote, I'm not saying make it easy for people to cheat, but make it easy for them to jump through the hoops that you want them to jump through. You need them to have an ID, cool. Make it free, make it easy for an individual to get in terms of the process they have to get it. They still have to prove themselves. But it's just, I'm not saying the Democrats are, saints, they're not. But, and I have no problem if you want to require it to vote. But make it easy and free to get. And I don't mean easy like anybody can get it, like just by saying I want one. But don't make it like you got to go down to the DMV and you got to wait and you got to send in this form. It's a lot of people are busy with their fucking lives and a lot of people are intimidated by that shit. I mean, at that point, you might as well have a test to say you're worthy of voting or not. So anyway, all right, fellas, that's been a hell of a show. I sure enjoyed chatting with you guys, talking with you guys. But it is late. I need to go sleep. It's 2:30 here. Thank you guys for hanging out. New members, welcome. Great to have you. Recurring members who have come back, great to have you. Super chats, thank you guys. All members, thank you guys for supporting this chat as much as you do. I very much appreciate it. I will be back with some videos tomorrow, maybe some gameplay streams tomorrow, and a new Gabbin' and Games on Friday. In the meantime, take it easy, be well.